Commission today, April the 14th, 2015, at 6:03. If we can rise for invocation. Chief Gonzalez, can you lead us in the invocation?
Please bow our heads. Dear Lord, we come before you. Please bless everybody in attendance. Give us the wisdom and the knowledge to make the right decision for the city of San Juan. Thank all those attending this meeting and lead us in the right direction. In your name we pray.
Amen. We can face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Y'all may be seated. We now have public comments. On the agenda, under item 5A, financial presentation by Bond Counsel Jesus Chuy Ramirez and First Southwest Financial Advisor Chris Vela to discuss the options, procedures, methods, and instruments necessary to obtain the city's required financial responsibility for Hidalgo County Precinct 2 proposed roadway projects and other projects proposed on April the 1st of 2015 by the Mayor and the City Commission of the City of San Juan, Texas, and Hidalgo County Precinct 2 Commissioner Eduardo Cantu, and approve any and all action necessary to finance and commit to proposed projects. Chief Gonzalez.
Yeah, Mayor Commission, this is a presentation based on a recommendation by the Mayor Commission from Mr. Chris Vela to come forward and provide the means and elements as to how to propose and fund some of the projects that were discussed. Chris, Mr. Vela? Yeah.
I do want to advise some of the people that are standing in the back, there is some seating in the front. If you can raise your hand where there's a seat. If any of you wish to come and sit forward so you don't have to be standing, please come forward. And just for a little briefing before we get started, we had a workshop maybe a couple of weeks ago with the county commissioner and the rest of the commission to discuss the roads that you've heard about tonight, the Sioux Road, Eldora, we talked about Nolena, Cesar Chavez. Also in the mix, we threw in San Antonio Road. We talked about the drainage issues in Las Flores, the drainage in Las Brechas, and the public safety building. And so what the Mr. Vela was charged to go out and do was to take a look at, one, what would be the proposal for costs of each and one of all these projects, and the other would be the funding, if at all possible. What could the city afford at this time, and what would it entail if these projects were undertaken? And so that's what we're picking up. Mr. Vela?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Commission, ladies and gentlemen. This is Chris Vela with First Southwest Company, financial advisors to the city. I'm going to hand out to the commission the CIP that was prepared by... Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. I think we all have that.
And that incorporates the projects that were discussed at the last meeting, as the mayor said. And we were asked to provide some alternatives by instituting some changes to the original plan that we were talking about. So the public safety building, we deleted that as a priority for right now, and we're focusing on all of the streets that were delineated at that meeting on that workshop. Now, the sheet that we have here on the screen is, we have two scenarios, one which is a 20-year and one which is a 15-year amortization. The 20-year is broken down into two alternatives. One, strictly the Precinct 2 proposal, and number two, a combination of the Precinct 2 proposal and the other projects that were delineated at the City Commission workshop at the last time that we met. So the total project funds that would be needed for construction under the Precinct 2 proposal is $5.7 million, and under the complete project program, $8,357,265. We're talking about an estimated interest cost of 4.25.
Where is that total?
I'm sorry?
You had a total. You just said a total amount. Oh,
yeah, those are the project.
On this page here.
It would be the total of the total cost column on the San Juan projects. It would be all of them, starting with the 2,350 all the way down to the 901 on the CIP. We're talking about the same rate, no bond insurance, and of course the total debt service. And of course we mentioned the conservative wrap, and that's taking some principal and layering it in according to the existing structure that you have on your debt. The term is 20 years. And the total fund balance drawdown of $400,000. Now we talked about the $400,000 drawdown from the general fund. And in this particular case, we did something different. We went and talked about what is the balance in your interest in sinking fund, which is the actual source of the repayment of debt. Rather than impose on the general fund, look at this other number. And this is something right now that the chief and the finance people are looking at. One of the numbers that we want to, the criteria that we want to establish to make sure that this number is available to us is what is the balance at the end of the fiscal year, number one, and then what balance do you need to have in that balance to be able to make out your payment during the year to account for payments that are due in February, payments that are due in August, and the revenues that you get from collections of taxes. Because
Mr. Rilla, before you go on, I want to apologize. I failed to mention that present with us is County Commissioner Eduardo Cantu. Thank you for being here.
thank you. Anyway, that is one assumption, and then the other assumption that we were apprised of is the increase in the potential value as from the appraisal district that took you to the tune of about 7%, and that number is reflected as well. So given those conditions and those, how should I say, assumptions, we talked about a total impact for the Precinct 2 projects of 0.0157 cents, or let's say 1.6 tenths of a penny. And then on the combined projects, we're talking about 3.46 total for the two projects. We're talking about on the annual impact on an average home value here in the area, we're talking 11.21 and 24, and then the monthly contribution on each one of those homes.
That's the annual, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the monthly.
Yes.
The following pages in the back are supportive pages for you on the cash flows, and obviously by each one, each alternative, the first alternative being the Precinct 2, and then the one that's combined, and the assumptions on the draw of that debt service fund schedule.
You have only up to the year 20.
Now, the other thing that we did that I failed to
2022.
mention, Mayor, and excuse me, go ahead.
You said we have the draw, you stop at the year 2022. Is it because it's just the same thing going down?
Maybe if we focus on page 2 of the presentation, where we have the two boxes and the two alternatives for the monies that we're trying to do here. The other thing that we also did, if you remember, we talked about when the delivery of the monies would be required. And we talked about, we coordinated with Mr. Cervantes and Ronnie, the city engineer, and also with the engineers from Precinct 2 as to when they would actually need this money. And instead of issuing it in this particular fiscal year, issuing it in November of 15, making a payment in August of 16, and then layering in the principal after that to lessen the impact and allowing your taxable value to catch up a little bit and help you as well on that side. So if you would bear with me on the spreadsheet itself, you'll notice that we make an interest payment on both of these series in 16, August, but we don't start principal till 17, so that would be 16, 17. And then if you look at column N, it has the fund balance drawdown from the interest in sinking. Remember that I said that still needs to be verified. Of $109,000 the first year, and then a total, Mayor, of $400,000 over the life, and all the way to year 22, I believe. Now, versus the original assumption that we were discussing, which was $400,000 every year from the general fund. So this kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off on the general fund, and it kind of gives you another avenue to go to mitigate the tax rate impact to the taxpayers of the community. So,
we typically do what? We put half of the sales tax goes to...
No, not the sales tax.
To fund this, to put the monies aside that we designate every year.
Actually, the money's already there, Mayor, in a, what we would call a restricted account. And if I get in trouble here, I know that Mr. Ramirez can help me here on the legality
Mechanic
side of
of
the
that,
debt
yeah.
service fund. But once you levy a tax
Right,
for debt service, that money can only be used for debt service. So there's no other alternative.
right,
So that fund balance is used to offset any shortfalls that you have on tax collections, that you have on hand versus how much the payment is due at the time. So that is something that we discussed this morning when we met, and this is something that the finance department and the city manager's office is working on to try to identify the actual amounts in that. But that's how the plan would work. It's not a very complicated plan, but it has, to a certain degree, mitigated some of the tax rate impact that would be to the community. I fully realize that 1 cent is 1 cent too many, you know, in a lot of cases, but I just don't know. The other caveat that we have is that these rates are couched by 50 basis points. In other words, between now and November, we're talking about 50 basis points, which is not very much, Mayor. You know, interest rates can change between now and then. They haven't so far. They've been, last night I was at another presentation at another client, and we were looking at rates because a question came up of January of 14 when that particular entity had issued some debt, and they're actually lower now than they were in January of that year. The real question, I sent you some information so that you could read.
I did.
And the real question is what's going to happen forward, and I think that at the end of the day, it's very easy. It's difficult to conclude one strategy or another is good, and in this business, it's very difficult to play interest rates games in terms of forecasting because you're normally not going to win that game. So
in other words, what you're saying, it's going to
the best thing to do is if the market is there, take advantage of it. If it's something that within your plan and your needs, that would be the best advice that I could give you. So if there's any questions, I'll be more than glad to entertain them.
any questions from the commission?
Mr. Vela, I just go over some of these scenarios. On page 1, under scenario 1, you have 5.7, and then under scenario 2, you have 5.7, with the difference being the amortization. One would be at 20 years, one would be at 15 years.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me, you know, down here, we're talking about the differences in the impact. You're talking about a little over, well, a little on the annual average of a home, which that's not for San Juan, is that?
That's a good question, Commissioner, and it's something that we discussed this morning as well. We put it there so that you could see it. Normally, when you finance for less time, you get a better rate. The problem is that you amortize more principal at an earlier period, and with the needs that San Juan has, to load it on the front end would preclude us from doing things at a later date that we may need to do to achieve other needs that the community may have. The decision is yours, and the alternative is there, but it would be better served for the community to be able to layer its debt in an orderly fashion to allow to be able to finance other needs that may be coming. I don't know what other needs you may have, but the 20 gives you a better window on a going forward basis than the 15.
Let me ask you this. You know, at the last meeting, Mr. Cruz mentioned a updated number for systematic road improvements throughout the city to the tune of maybe $9 million.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
In other words, he mentioned at the last meeting that overall needs for repairs on streets, and that's not even including the ones that we're talking about. Is that correct? It's $9.5 million.
In addition to?
In addition.
To this number.
Right, because here we're only talking about.
So instead of 8 million total, we're looking at 17 million plus.
Right, and he puts it, of course, in priority, being the worst condition to those that, and I guess you give us a time span of what, you know, what we would look at, why this would be considered priority A and priority B and that kind of thing. So, you know, if we were to say that priority, if we look at the streets right now, everyone's home street is a priority in the majority of cases because of the conditions. So what I want to go back is, you're stating that when we look at the possibilities of having monies available in the future, if we were, depending how we scale this and how we layer it. So my question is, if we're only looking at a few roads right now, which is Eldora and Sioux Road, Cesar Chavez, San Antonio, and then two are just drainage improvements. Right. We haven't even touched on residential streets. So if you're saying then that by the way that we're looking at this now, we would be able to undertake up to $8 million for a raise in taxes of, I think the $8 million you said
346.
3.3 cents. Correct?
3.46 cents.
Okay. When would be the, how, if we're layering, and let's say that that's something we're going to, there's one of the options. When would be the next time, as we start looking at how far we take debt, when would be the next time that we could look at going out to be able to build the police station or do the residential roads in other places like Pullen Street and Hooper, and how do we decide that? How do financially do we plan that these $9 million worth of road work that is needed throughout the city becomes into a factor? Are we going to wait another 5 years and then it becomes another Sioux Road and Eldora, or how does layering help us, and how much can we go? How far can we go to, and then still be able to go in the future for something else?
That is a difficult question to answer, but I guess I'll try to give it my best shot. We're talking about, for all practical purposes, doubling the amount that we're doing here. You know, 9 and 8, you know, pretty close. So let's assume that we were doubling that. You know, there's factors that enter into this calculation. We talked about the assessed valuation. We talked about other resources that are available in terms of, like, for example, balances in the interest and sinking fund, and also other funds that are available from other sources that you would need to take a look at. What I would recommend to the City Commission and to your staff is to continue working on your capital improvement program. Identify the priorities. I know that priorities are all needed at one time, but maybe establish some sort of priorities and try to work with us to develop another plan, or work with updating the plan. But Mayor, as you well know, there's not that many alternatives. Either you find some grant money, some low interest money, or find some sources of revenue to repay, or tax rate, or a combination of all of the above.
Mr. Vela, just for everyone's benefit, could you define, when you talk about the sinking fund?
Yes. The interest in sinking fund, in general terms, is like a savings account that you have for your children for education, and that you make a unrevocable pledge that you're not going to take any of that money out for any other reason other than for the education of your children. And the interest in sinking fund, by law, is set up and funded with taxes that are levied against the assessed valuation and the owners of properties within the city of San Juan, and it is strictly used to repay the debt. It cannot be used for anything else. You cannot take it from the debt service and use it for operation and maintenance. You can't use it for salaries. You can't use it for capital outlay other than capital outlay as translated in project funds. And there's some other technical issues that I'm sure Mr. Ramirez.
Well, and I thank you for that. It's a technical term, and that's why I asked for you to define it.
Yeah.
And you and I have been talking a lot about it, but I think it's important for everyone to understand that. The other question, as we talked about other resources, and going to the mayor's question about, you know, in 5 years, you know, or 10 years, you know, where will we get additional funding? Are we not also currently paying off existing debt? Do we not currently have debt service on other bonds? And I asked that question knowing the answer, but I'd like for hers. So some of those are about to mature as well within the next 4 to 5 years.
And one of the things that we also looked at, part of the diligence in analyzing this, is looking at your existing debt. And we had that conversation this morning with your staff as well, and what would be available. And it's not a big amount that's available, but there's some out there that's available. And it gets available closer to November, if you will. So what we're trying to do is to duplicate what we did with the library when we financed the library. When we did the library, we actually issued new debt, but we also refunded some existing debt, and at the same time lowered that by doing the refunding and the new money, whatever the new money amount was lowered by the savings of that refunding at the same time. Now, it's not very much, but it's something, and it's something that we are looking at as well. It's just, at this point in time, it's a little still out in the future, you know, to try to estimate what that's going to be. But it is something that we're looking at as well.
But you're talking restructuring.
No.
debt.
Restructuring is a different thing.
Well,
Refunding is from high to low. Restructuring is pushing debt out.
Okay, which restructuring then is another option as well.
We could do a restructuring, yes. And it's like, and I'm going to put that in terms of a mortgage. If you have a mortgage and you financed it for 20 years, and for whatever reason you happens in your life that you were not able to make that payment, and you wanted to refinance it and push it out to 30 and lower your debt service payment, the immediate result is going to be higher cost in interest over the life that you're going to be paying. And that's what we call a restructuring. And in some cases, it makes sense to do. To a certain extent, we're doing a little bit of restructuring with this conservative wrap that we're talking about here, but not very aggressive, okay?
Do we have any of our existing debt that is going to be completely paid off in the next 4 to 5 years?
There is a drop. If you look at the, and these finances are all structured along those natural drops. If you go to column G.
Which page?
Any one of the sheets. These sheets, Mayor?
Okay, I'm at the second page.
You can see what your net existing debt is. Your column D is all of your existing general obligation debt, and then on column E is the self-supporting debt. That's debt that it's either paid by EDC or water and sewer, where a tax pledge was used to achieve lower savings. And then the next one is your net existing debt. And you can see that there is some drop-offs in your debt. And a lot of the way we structured this takes into consideration that.
So the drop-off would be, would you say it's a year 2025?
I would say starting in 19, and then in 23, and then in 25.
Okay, so when we look at the amount that we talk about being available, what are the factors that give you that certainty? We're looking at, we talk about the amount that's put away because we're trying to make sure we've got the collections between 85 to 90% of the taxes. That's why we have our kind of a reserve to be able to meet that. What allows us to have the certainty that we're not going to go below that rate, so that we have to actually dip into a fund to make up for that difference?
Well, that would be that analysis that the city manager and the finance people were going to do, and determine how first of all, verify the amount that's there, and number two, from a historical standpoint, take your collections.
Okay.
Remember that most of your collections become delinquent on January the 31st.
And we're talking about the current collections, right?
Current collections, yes, for the tax levy for the current year.
Okay.
So your payments are in February, and then your payments are in August. So they need to kind of run some sort of a cash flow and see how much, you know, you historically have been running and what your debt service would be, and how much of that interest and sinking fund balance you would need to smooth out any deficiencies that you may have in your collections. And then that amount would be available. Whatever is not, that amount would be available. Now remember that the interest and sinking fund is always being collected, because every year the taxes are being levied and collections are done. And also you have prior year collections that enter into that fund as well.
Okay, so we still need to get those projections, is that correct?
The chief is working on that, yes.
Okay, to be able to determine whether that's your theory runs assist. Now, I guess my question, let me just understand something. Under, and when we talked about it at the workshop last time, we talked about 75,000 to cover every million. I think that was one of the estimations, something like that.
An estimate on the amount of annual debt service,
yes. Okay, so if we're saying to be able to have met that debt, so if we're saying that we would want to include all the projects that we discussed up to the 8.3 million, and to include that, where would you show that amount having to be paid? We're looking, we would go back, if we had our schedule to do that, it would become assuming what is happening already on E, or in addition to the 400,000 that's there?
Yes, you have page number 1, you have a box that's labeled 5855, and that takes into consideration the additional cost and also dropping of $5,700,000 into the construction fund. And if you look at column J, it gives you the debt service associated with that particular series. And if you flip the page, you can go to column K, L, and M on that box,
okay,
labeled 2,785,000, which would be the additional drainage projects in that street, and go to the column total debt service, and that will give you the debt service. But as you can see, Mayor,
I'm sorry, that would be total debt service for the 2.7
yes,
only.
individually. If column J and M would be the total debt service on both of those. But what I want you to see there is how it starts gradual and it increases.
Yes, yes.
To allow you to maintain this this tax rate that we're talking about, allowing you to grow into it, allow these your assessed valuation to kind of catch up to it.
So we would be at about,
Well, let's take,
let's take the first year. If the first year with the 159 and the 77.
and that would be interest only. Remember, we were talking about the initial structure?
So as far as principal, no principal?
No principal, ma'am. None,
Okay.
none whatsoever.
So we
Then
would,
the next one is 329,
yes. And then the 159.
and then the 159. You're talking about $488,000,
Okay,
slightly under $500,000.
the second year. Mhm.
And then look at your injection from the INS fund, and then that gives you your net debt that would be due. And if you compare column G to column A, that would be the differential.
G to column, which one?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
I'm sorry, tell me that last one you said, column G?
Yes, column G, because that's your net general obligation
Yes,
debt,
uh-huh.
plus the new debt minus the contribution equals column O.
So if I'm looking as we look at the amounts as it starts increasing, as we start going through the years, at some point we've crossed the threshold to 500 over 500,000, and then it continues to do that. Now, and I already asked you this question, I guess maybe when we get some of the information they're still looking at, as we start seeing how we would be looking at other projects as we go along.
That would be another process
That we would need, so that
start.
if we had this running and we had to look at something in the near future, so we have an estimation of what we're looking at. Of course, the conservative thing is looking at things the way they are now with a you know, I guess a conservative projection for increases in property value, I suppose, and sales, other things that would help us as we look in servicing debt for other projects in the future. And so how did you determine that?
Here's how I would approach something
Okay.
like that. I have been talking to the city manager, and I've been talking to your finance people, and also to your planning director, Mr. Cervantes. Planning is an integral component of any community. And developing what we call capital improvement programs are vital. Arriving at consensus on the needs based on an assessment of needs is a very important process. And developing your annual capital improvement program is very, very important. And a lot of people would say, well, why is that important? First of all, it's a document that is not cast in concrete. It's a document that should be flexible and should be analyzed and reviewed every year. Because as we well know, whether you're a school district, a county, a special district, or a city, needs change. And that's one thing that we all have learned over time, is it needs effectively change. What was yesterday's priority may not be today's priority. But what is important is to delineate that list and do the consensus building in your area of council, if you will, to where the staff has the necessary direction to be able to start looking at what resources are available and continually to plan. And I can tell you from experience and having served on boards appointed by communities that the capital improvements programs are very vital, necessary tools to have, rather than going through a process initiated quickly. It's something that you're looking today, tomorrow, and the day after. And communities with vision and maturity go further than communities that react. So it's important. The planning of project development, of project delineation is critical. This process is critical as well, but probably not as critical as doing that, because what if monies become available all of a sudden? Well, you know what? I've got a project right here that we can do.
Right.
And that's the best advice that I could give this board and the community, is that planning is super, super important, so that you know where you're at and where you need to be and where you want to go, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. I guess what I want to ask the county commissioner on particular projects that you are proposing, as we look at, I'm sorry, if I may, I'll take advantage that he's here. Don't go too far, Mr. Vela. Good evening. I think one of we've sat through several of these meetings already with us, and you're seeing what the needs of our community are, and these are just a few. We definitely can't meet them all at once. But I wanted to ask you, when we look at the roads that you're proposing through your project that you're talking about, Eldora and Sioux Road, and I believe it was Cesar Chavez, and you talked about a 5.7, which is something we've been just kind of throwing around and trying to figure out. Are you open to suggestions of whether, if it's a 5-lane, would you be open to scaling something down? If we know already by some of the projections right now, and again, we don't have all the information. We still need to get some information to come to us about the possibility of actually looking at some of these funding. And we're looking at, if we were to take it on the 5, just your projects alone would be an increase of 1 cent on taxes. If we do some of these others that are pretty critical in other areas, which drainage and streets, as we heard some of our folks speak, you know, we go up another 3 cents. And we think 3 cents, well, every penny, as Mr. Vela said, is probably a penny too much. And we've seen already increases in valuations, so folks are seeing their taxes increase. Not so much because we've raised them, because we actually lowered them. But if we've just had that savings, and now we're looking, well, we got to do 5.7 worth of road, would you be open to going back and looking at this and saying 5 lanes versus 3 lanes, versus 2 lanes and a turning, or 2 lanes and a continuous left? So that if we were able to fit in the 5.7, not just what you're proposing, but maybe even San Antonio, freeing up a little bit more to maybe do some of our regular residential streets, so that when we look at all these numbers, we're not throwing it all, the bulk of it, into 5-lane roads. And I want you to take that in consideration. I know you've got schematics and you've got plans and you've got your presentation you've given us, and I think that we got our priorities as well and the needs. And you know, we talk about our people and the need to do something out there. And I guess before you sit down too, clarifying that we still have the 1.3 million that we did through a memorandum of understanding with the county to be able to do an overlay on Eldora, on Sioux Road, and Olana. That's still on the table. That's still going to be done. But would you take time at this point to consider that, so that we could look at our funding sources and be able to say, hey, maybe we can include all of these and maybe even put another one, or just stop at those are we looking at and not have to burden the people even more?
Mayor, thank you for allowing me to come up here and speak. You touched on about 8 different things, so
I typically do, since you're here.
Not a problem. No, and I'm glad that you gave me the opportunity, Mayor and Commissioners. Let me take it back. Let me kind of start from the beginning. As a county commissioner, to look at, you know, what we can do is bring in MPO money, right? And the only way we can bring out MPO money to a city is to be able to expand roadways. Okay, the MPO will only allow us to work on a project that they're going to contribute to if we expand it from from its current condition to 4 to 5 lanes. That's why we have 4 or 5 lanes. That's why we're proposing 4 or 5 lanes. Anything smaller, 3 lanes, 2 lanes with curb and gutter, they're not interested in those types of projects. They're not going to fund those types of projects. Those would be projects that would have to be done 100% by the city. So then when, you know, knowing that, the only projects, the projects that we looked at based on needs were projects that could be expanded because of, you know, the daily traffic that they have. And so the first project that we looked at was Eldora Road, because both FAR and San Juan had a need to improve the roadway. So we worked on that. We worked on a schematic so that we could present to the MPO and request those additional monies that will allow us to build a 5-lane road, curb and gutter, drainage, at minimal cost to the city. On those projects, you're talking about the city getting, the city contributing about 12 cents on the dollar. So basically 88 cents is coming from somewhere else. And that 88 cents is coming from the county and from the MPO. So, you know, in this situation with these 3 roads, you have $50 million coming from outside the city to build those roads. And what the request is that the city pitch in $5.7 million. If you look at 5.7 alone, it sounds like a big number, but when you look at the big picture, it's $50 million for $5.7 million. So that's a problem. And even if we had the opportunity to reduce the roadway, you wouldn't get the savings would go to the MPO, because whether it's 3, 4, or 5 lanes, they're paying for the construction costs. What we, the county and the city, are paying for are all the soft costs, the engineering costs, the right-of-way, and stuff like that. So whether it's 3, 4, or 5 lanes, all that's covered by the MPO through the construction funding. Can we look at different projects? I think that the way, if you didn't want to spend on all 3 projects, you pick and choose your projects. For instance, on Eldora Road, we already have money from the MPO designated. On Sioux Road, we already have money designated. The one that we don't have money designated is on Cesar Chavez. Do we think that we could get the money? Absolutely, because we're going to be moving forward on working on the project. And then Cesar Chavez is actually the cheapest project to the city of San Juan. 2.8 miles of road for $1 million. If you look at just the south portion from Business 83 to Carroll, which is maybe a quarter of a mile, I think I've seen Ronnie Cruz with some numbers at about $2.2 million. So you're talking about 2.8 miles of road, 5-lane with curb and gutter for $1 million to the city, or Carroll to Business 83 for $2.2 million. So just on Cesar Chavez, I mean, it's a huge savings. When I was at the city of FAR, we built one road, which was Hall Acres. It was a 3-lane road with curb and gutter. It cost us around $3 million. No minimal right-of-way, minimal outside costs. So if you figure that a road costs you $3 million a mile, you're getting 7 miles of road for $5.7 million. That's basically what the county is bringing to the table. But in the end, it's y'all's decision.
That is true. Now, what about the phasing this? You talked about, and we talked about it briefly at the other meeting, taking it all on now or taking it on and as I look at the numbers to try to digest it as far as, we look at when we are retiring some of the debt and some money being available and we go into increasing in debt. Is that something, too, that you would be amenable to so that we could look at this? Is, you talked about the road that might be least costly and maybe have the quicker impact economically would be like a portion of that Cesar Chavez that we've talked often about from Duranta or our Carroll Road to Business 83. And I know that Alamo is willing to participate in that, so that's another entity that'd be willing to give into that, and then be able to look at that in a more immediacy, still having the others in on the radar at a different time frame, so that we can, look at our financing for everything else that we're looking with the least impact on the community immediately. You talk about now, and we know that the MPO and the federal monies are there, and we've put it, it's on the plan. It's just as soon as a project becomes, shovel ready, we always see it come up. That's just the nature of it. Some folks are looking for it right now, and something doesn't happen, somebody else comes, and the money becomes available. So what are the possibilities of you considering that as well when we look at?
Mayor, first of all, I'm going to consider whatever you guys agree to. But I'll give you, I guess, a scenario. Mr. Vela gave different scenarios. If, for instance, you took out Sioux Road, if you all decide to take out Sioux Road, because my proposal is, 7 miles of road, which is Sioux, Eldora, and Cesar Chavez. If you were to decide to take Sioux Road out, because we have that money, because the county has committed money for the overlay, the only thing that I would say is let's go to option A. Remember, we had 3 options, A, B, and C. C being just the overlay, which will last 2 to 3 years, and obviously that depends on traffic and rain. If you were to pull Cesar Chavez out, which is going to cost the city $2.3 million, the only thing that I would say is we can't do an overlay. So let's look at to see what the difference in cost is from going from option C to option A.
Commissioner, if I could just interrupt right there. On Cesar Chavez, that project's already complete. What was committed to?
No, I'm talking about Sioux Road.
Okay, on Sioux Road. But on Cesar Chavez, it's already complete.
No, what I was saying is we did Cesar and we did Eldora, and the city decides to pull out Sioux Road because it's a $2.3 million investment. Because it's designed as an overlay, which was option C, which was the cheapest option, because that would only last 2 to 3 years, go to option A and pay the difference. So that if option C, by memory, costs $400,000, go to option A, which is, I don't remember the numbers, let's say it was $1 million. Pay the difference, and we do Cesar Chavez, Sioux Road in option A form, which is actually a reconstruction of the road, which will last longer than 2 to 3 years. Maybe it'll give us a 5 to 6 year. And that way, that'll give you time to plan and bring that project back. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And now let me ask you about that. if we look at Sioux Road and we look at the part that's probably traveled by maybe the most traffic between Raul Longoria and Retama. Eldora, well, Eldora, you've got a little bit more residential towards I Road. But if we look at those sections, could those sections be worked at first? And then we could look at, and depending on the scaling of it, systematically going into the other portion from Raul Longoria to I Road at a different time, still honoring the overlay on those so that we could capture the part that has probably the most traffic because of all the schools and be able to work on those in sections. How would that work?
Absolutely. I mean, you could do it that way. You can, what you're saying is start from Raul, basically to Cesar Chavez, if you want to break it down into half and half, right? And work that one first. For instance, and like I said, this is up to the city. If you don't want to work on Sioux Road west of Raul Longoria, you only want to work on
overlay. We do the overlay.
On the west side?
Oh,
okay.
Overlay's got to be done. I mean, it's like our folks said, we just can't go through there anymore. So we have to have, we're talking immediate relief, which is the overlay that we've spoken about and committed to with the county, but then take sections of that road.
The only thing that and we've talked about this, the only thing that I've said to that is that the county's not going to spend money on a project that's not going to last until the next plan comes in. For instance, what we've talked about, the reason we're going with option C is because we're assuming that we're going to do let's call them the priority projects, which will come in 4 or 5 years, so that the overlay will hopefully get us to that point. But we know, Raul Cecin has told you, TxDOT has said that the overlay is not going to work for a long period of time. So if you do just an overlay on the west part of Sioux Road, and there's no plan to come in 4 or 5 years, then we got to do the best thing between both the city and the county to make that road last the longest, right? So that there's a plan to come in and do it correctly later. If not, we're going to keep coming back, and the community is going to look at the county and say, hey, bring another $1 million. We're not going to have $1 million every 2 to 3 years. You know, the opportunities now with the partnerships that we're trying to work together and to bring the MPO and add that additional funding. If the MPO money comes in, and this didn't come from me, it came from the stuff from TxDOT, those projects last 20 to 25 years.
Right.
So we can basically put those in the, behind us. And I say us because I'm part of this community too. We could put Eldora, Sioux, and Cesar Chavez behind us and work on all the other projects that you all have. And I've also committed last time to the meeting, and I've committed before to helping with San Antonio Road. I'm trying to do everything that they'll let me do within the legal limits of
Right.
What we can do in the city limits.
And I truly appreciate you taking San Antonio in consideration as well. And I think that my thought is, as we look at these, and is the ability even today to be able to add some of that dollar, if we were a way to find phases, to use some of that dollar on some of the residential streets that we have. Not within our proposal here, that are immediately becoming priorities. And I think if we look at how the priorities were set even 2 years ago and reevaluate them, which Mr. Cruz did, I bet you that some of those have switched because of the deterioration. And so my concern too is, if we look at what's an equitable way to look at it so that 5.7 can cover as much as possible, including some of the things, some of the streets that we also have, to be able to address even some of the residential streets that would not be requiring that kind of expansion, but rather some work now.
Just so that we're clear, residential streets, I cannot help with.
No, I'm not asking
No,
you to
I
do
just
that.
make it sure, because some
Right.
people think that, I can just come in and pick and choose which different roads I can do.
No, we would have told you about that too. And I'm telling you now, but that we have to pay.
Yes,
And as we, as the commission, huh?
It is also important.
Yes, exactly.
Residential streets are also important.
Exactly. And that's the kind of thing that, as we're making these decisions and we're looking at these priorities, I like to be able to sit with you about, and this commission, what are some different ways that we could structure this so we take full advantage of what we can get now, with the thought that says, as Mr. Vela talked about, our capital improvement plan, to be able to satisfy especially these worst roads like Eldora and Sioux Road that you know well, Cesar, but San Antonio, but also Pullen, and all these roads that if you drive through them, you know, he's not going to be the only one with a box of parts. It's going to be just about everybody. So I want to be able to, as a commission, to suggest that as our folks are bringing up some numbers to us, that we're also taking into consideration that we're going to go out for this amount at this time, and it only includes what's been here, but we know that there's more than just this,
Mayor,
and we hear it.
if I may, I wanted to address a few things that were mentioned. You know, one of the things when we talk about going from 2 to 5 lanes, and as the commissioner mentioned, you know, we're talking about going to 2 to 5 lanes on Eldora, for example. That also includes sidewalks on both sides, which, having been on this commission now for 6 years, we've taken on several sidewalk projects because they're so important and they're so needed. But because of that, we also know they're very expensive. So that's an additional cost. But looking at the numbers that Mr. Cruz has proposed for Eldora and for Sioux Road particularly, in the commissioner's plan, it's asking for $2.35 million for Sioux Road and for Eldora, right? Looking at Mr. Cruz's figures for a 2-lane road with some drainage, not even adequate drainage, but some drainage, no sidewalks.
Sidewalks.
So you're saying
San
it goes to
Antonio?
4?
San
I'm
Antonio?
looking at Eldora Road and Sioux Road. It's page 6 of 6 in the packet that Mr. Cruz gave us.
Oh, I don't have the package.
I think you'll see it right there. On Eldora Road, we're going on Eldora Road from I Road to Raul Longoria and from Raul Longoria to Retama only. We're talking about going from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, no sidewalk, minimal drainage. That cost alone is $2.65 million. On Sioux Road, from I Road to Longoria and from Raul Longoria to Cesar Chavez, again, improving it to 4 lanes, no sidewalks and minimal drainage, $3.02 million. And that would fall solely on the backs of the citizens of San Juan, 100%. That alone right there is, just those two is $5.67 million. Just those 2 roads, and not to the level that they need to be, because these roads, and I'll be very frank and honest, and I'll challenge anyone to produce evidence to the contrary, but the reason why they're in the condition that they are is because of a lack of drainage and because of an increased traffic, because these roads have now become outlets from the expressway. And that's in addition to the roads on, the streets on Eldora, which everyone, the schools on Eldora and the school that's on Sioux Road. We expect that to grow even more. We can't afford to build these roads to a minimum standard. We need to build these roads, as TxDOT has said, to last us for the next 20 to 30 years. Because if we don't, then we're going to continually have to fix these roads. Then we're never going to have an opportunity, because we're worrying about these major roads. We're never going to have an opportunity to start focusing on the residential streets that need the attention. Now, having said that, the commissioner has also talked about helping on San Antonio, which is great, but I think that needs to be really worked out, because we have a cost estimate from Mr. Cruz on that, but I'd really like to see us do a project development. Mr. Vela mentioned in his comments that we really need to plan, and we need to develop these projects effectively and efficiently and find as many partners as we can. We have a willing partner sitting right in front of us. Let's develop that project. Let's get his commitment on that project as well. But I think that we can lower the costs that have been proposed for that road. Now, the question was asked, who brought these projects forward? Well, if I have to answer that question, then that's someone that's completely disconnected from this community. Because the people that brought this project forward are the people on Sioux Road, the people on Eldora Road.
Please
I
keep
have
it down.
met with them for 6 years now, and every time I go to their homes, to their neighborhoods, they say they want their road fixed. They're the ones that have brought this to us. They are the ones that are pushing this. They are the ones that have said they need it. There's a woman in her comments that said she's embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed too, because I think that
No,
it
no,
is
please keep it down.
unfortunate that because the city has been cash strapped for so long and has not been able to get the help that it needs from other partners, we haven't been able to. We have a willing partner right here in front of us, willing to help us build a road. In the short amount of time that I've been working with the county, I have seen one thing, and that's that every community in this precinct and beyond is going through the same issues that we are. Every single community has road problems, and the only way that we're going to address them is with a long-term plan. Now, if someone doesn't understand that a road needs to be fixed because it's full of potholes, and in some cases, and I think you also mentioned, they're not potholes anymore, they're craters. I agree, because I've been out there, and many of you have seen me out there, and I go regularly because I want you to know that I'm out there, and I go at night, and I go during the day. I am not willing, and I'll let the commission know right now, I am not willing to sit here and say, let's remove Sioux Road, let's remove
I don't think
Eldora.
we ever said
I don't,
remove 'em.
no, that was something that was mentioned, but that's okay. I'm not willing to say, let's do a part of it this way and a part of it that way. I think every member of every neighborhood along Eldora and Sioux Road deserve to have better.
Excuse me.
And we also are addressing the
That's during
south
public
side.
comments, please.
We're also addressing the south side too, Mr. Garcia. We are. And if you would allow me to finish, I'll continue. You know, the idea of these projects is because the county can work on those roads, because the county is limited in which roads it can work. That's why these projects were selected, because of the enormous need for those roads. Now, if you want to talk about Cesar Chavez, now there's something that has not been addressed. The city of Alamo is willing to partner on this, but at the last 3 meetings that we've met with the city of Alamo, they are not willing to partner on a short piece of this road. They have been very clear and in no uncertain terms have said they will only partner on that road if we do the entirety from Business 83 to Nolana at the very least. You're talking about doing just from Duranta to Business 83. They're not going to participate in that. They've said it very clearly. Now, if we want to talk about other ways of funding that, I think there are other ways of funding. I think that is, since that project will have a significant economic impact on both the city of Alamo and the city of San Juan, that is a project that could potentially be something that the EDC can commit itself to with its funding. And that won't necessarily fall completely on the city. And so now we're looking at other things. I think closing ourselves off and saying, well, let's take this road out, let's do that road, not this road. Then you're going to have people like Mr. Garcia upset because you left him out. And I'm not saying leave out the south side. I live on the south side myself, and I travel through the south side very, very regularly. And no one's saying to leave out the south side. What we're saying is that we've got major, major issues. Let's plan to address them all. Let's not just say, well, this road, this road, this. We have, right here in front of us, we have a plan that Mr. Cruz put together for roads that need to be repaired. And they include residential roads as well. Okay, but we've never taken on a project development program or even a comprehensive improvement plan. We just know this is what it costs. Let's start working on finding partners to help us with these roads. And I think that if we can fix the roads that we have now, we're going to have an increase in sales tax that's going to help us be able to do more. If we fix these roads now, we're going to have additional resources available to us to address other issues. But if we let one or two of these projects go undone, we are gonna be dooming ourselves to fix these roads 5 or 6 years down the road, where the cost is gonna be significantly higher, and we may or may not have a partner to do them. So I just want to be clear, I am not willing to consider removing Eldora or Sioux Road from this, and I would not support doing it in phases either. I think that the residents of those areas deserve better than what they've gotten, and I think that we need to really focus on doing what we can to get them what they need immediately, because if you go into those neighborhoods, they'll tell you, and they've told you here today, they're not willing to wait. They don't want to wait. They've waited long enough.
I think
And
you're
so
right. I think
Additionally,
that,
can I finish, please, Mayor?
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't interrupt you.
Excuse me.
and
Mr.
so-
Trevino, please.
You've
Please,
heard the
Mr.
commissioner now for a second time, he has said he is committed to helping us with San Antonio Road. I think that he's willing to help with as much as he possibly can. But we need to be able to develop the projects, find out how we can have his assistance, and then move on that. And we can start right now with San Antonio Road, because he's now said it for a second time. So let's do that before we start considering cutting roads out. Let's consider the EDC's involvement on funding the $1 million that's being requested for Cesar Chavez. So then now, if that's the case, now we only have to fund $4.7 million as opposed to
Mr. Trevino, please do not
5.7.
interrupt.
So then we would have to do only 4.7 instead of 5.7. Now we can start talking about going back and funding, which I think, and I'm 100% for doing the drainage projects, because, you know, one of the things that I live right next to Las Flores, and I see that flooding, and I talk to those individuals on a very regular basis. I've got family that lives right off of Sergeant Trevino Road that I've had to help bucket water out of their homes. Let's do the drainage projects, let's do Cesar, let's do Eldora, and then let's see how we can get the EDC or some other entity help us with the $1 million for Cesar Chavez. But I think we really need to consider when we talk about funding projects, about really planning to do them, because we can't just sit here and say we have a lot of needs. We've been looking at this document for 2 years. Did you prepare this 2 years ago? 3 years ago, thank you, 3 years ago. And we haven't moved on one single one. We tried to use urban county money, is that correct, Mayor, on some of these?
Yes,
And we were told we couldn't because they didn't qualify.
that's correct.
Let's go through every single one of them and see which ones qualify for urban county money, move forward on those. Let's focus ourselves with our urban county funding to fund the roads that we can, and to fight with them, and I say fight because it's a fight, to fight with the Census Bureau to fix their system on how they rank neighborhoods, so that we can qualify more neighborhoods to use our urban county. If we can do that, then we can start putting $200,000 to $250,000 per year of our urban county money to fix these roads. But let's start planning to do that instead of, you know, picking and choosing and cutting out and doing in phases. I think the people of Sioux Road and Eldora Road and Cesar Chavez deserve their relief now, and I think that we can do that if we move forward in a very financially cautious way, but also thinking beyond just what our own budget can do.
And I don't know, does anybody in the commission want to add something?
I was gonna ask County Commissioner, what is the deadline that we're looking at before we lose this money, the MPO money?
I think what's kind of holding us back is there's no deadline on that. Deadline of getting Sioux Road and Eldora Road either repaved or redone in option A. That's really the only thing that's at this point. But we've also have committed a lot of resources at the precinct to these projects. You know, we have 5 priority projects. 3 of them are the city of San Juan. So at some point we need to know, both because of the overlays and because of, I mean, we got to do something. I mean, it's our, as a commissioner, I gotta, you know, have projects in the precinct. So, I mean, it's all up to you all.
Thank you. I mean, I know you just came in January and you were already running with it. I know I met with you, myself and Commissioner Garza, and I just want to make sure that we do the right thing.
Sure, of
And
course.
So I just don't want to lose any money, but thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
bringing it to the table.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Commissioner Cantu, for being here today. I know roads are priority. We all know that. And listening to Mr. Vela up here speaking, addressing the commission, at the very end, when he mentioned about an assessment, the needs, that was going through my head right now at that time. I feel that the workshop we had this on April 1st, I believe it was, when we had it, it was good information, but I think it's just too much information just to decide tonight. I feel that we need to have another workshop, 2, 3 more workshops down the road to really dissect the issues here, you know, because going to what Commissioner Ramirez mentioned, I mean, obviously it's tax dollars, right? And of the help of the MPO. So I really want to take a look at this. I mean, really dissect this issue here, because you know, we got to make the proper decision, you know. And of course, we're all going to benefit from this, but I just feel that, you know, just going in there, jumping into it, I mean, I really we need to dissect this. You understand what I'm saying? So
I'm crystal clear on it. I don't think that there's anything else that I can present. So I think that it's a workshop that y'all would have amongst yourselves.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And
Sure.
believe me, I mean, you're helping us, you know, as a county commissioner, and I really appreciate it, you know, for going out and batting up, you know, for us. But, you know, the commission, the mayor, and the directors, everyone else, we really need to sit down and discuss what the priorities are. And we know that Sioux Road, Eldora, you know, those are priorities as well. Same thing as the drainage. I mean, those are issues that need to be addressed. So, I mean, that's my opinion. You know,
Sure.
I would love to have
And
another.
and if that's the case, just whenever y'all decide, let me know what to do with respect to Sioux and Eldora. Because if it's that you're not going to move forward, then we need to look at option A, and then I guess you guys got to figure out how to pay the difference. Well, I'm letting you know because, I mean, I've already presented all the information. So with that information, y'all can make the decision that y'all need to make.
And I think that one of the other things to keep in mind as we talk about projects, these projects your project is not going to be real in 1 year, in 2 years. It takes time. And what we have to, you know, we keep going back on this overlay. We have to have that. And that's all I'm saying on that. That has to happen in June when it was programmed. And it's to happen in August when it was programmed, Commissioner. It has to. Because that's what we bargained for when we signed that agreement. And I think that when we talk about these projects that take a while, and we know that, they're into the future, several years, before we see an actual bulldozer, an actual shovel. And some of these things are, as we already know, the immediacy of Eldora and East Sioux Road and, well, Nolana, we're not discussing it, but we already have the overlay for that as well, is of now, it's yesterday. Not even us having to say, okay, well, let's stop everything and let's redesign. I'm having a problem with that too. And I think that, you know, the commissioner talks about taking anything out. We know that it's got to be done, but we need immediate relief right now. And I think that that's something that, as we are sitting down to take a look at what we're going to look at and invest, then that's something else too that I want us to keep in mind, that it needs to be now. And the immediacy is the overlay. But the other thing is that I also have, and we have people, you know, all over town with incredible needs, and we need to be able to do exactly as Commissioner Garza said, is make that assessment, and I think make other options. I think there's other ways of funding. And I think that some of the other things that we're looking at one right now, I believe there's another one that can become available. And it might, and I'm not talking even of a bond issuance where the voter may vote, because of course that's probably the last thing you want to do, that we can consider. And I think if we can sit down and take a look at those and propose them at that workshop, that might release some money that we could even undertake something else. And I think the last thing I want is to pit the people against each other, my north against my south, my drainage against a sidewalk or another street or street lights. I don't want that to happen. I think that when we make this decision, you know, we're not going to please everyone, but we want to make sure that we've evaluated and taken all into consideration with what you're offering, with what our ability of our community is based on who we serve, that we can come up with something that says we had it all at the table. I understand there's still some numbers that need to be worked on by our staff. I'm looking forward for that to continue working. I'd like for that to come quicker than not so that we can begin to do it, because you're right, you've got to move your money somewhere else to do what you need to do. But before we leave that topic or be able to look at, and I understand you now, you're telling me you want it all or it's going to be. No,
I never said that, Mayor.
Well,
but first of all, let me just talk about the overlay. The county's not going to commit close to $1 million on a project that's going to last 2 to 3 years. There's no way. There's not enough money in the county budget. Just like you all have a budget, we have a budget. And what I committed to do was use the money to bring in additional monies to do bigger and more projects, better projects, longer lasting projects, more miles. There's no way that the county can go out there and spend $1 million on a project that's going to last maybe 2 to 3 years. With the rains that we've had in the last 6 months, they're not going to last that long. So there's no way we can go do an overlay, basically painting the street, because you have no infrastructure, you have no sub-base. It's not going to last, Mayor. So there's no way we can go and pretend that the street is fixed when it's not going to be fixed.
It's not about pretending, though, Commissioner. Let me understand you. If we commit to 5.7, do you do the overlay or not?
Absolutely, because it's going to last long enough for us to come in and do it correctly.
Same difference. They're still going to tear it up.
No, but you don't.
I mean, I guess I want to understand that I'm not going to let you do it.
Let's assume that it's not going to come, that we're not going to come in. If you go and do the overlay the way it's proposed in option C, and Raul Cecine told you, he's told you over and over and over. Ronnie's heard it, Chief has heard it, everybody that's been in those meetings has heard it. The overlay, because there's no sub-base, you know, and you can have TxDOT tell you this, it just washes away, whether you come in and reconstruct it or not. It's just going to wash away. I'm not going to allow the county to put $1 million and let it wash away. That's not the plan. The plan is to do an overlay because the city has allowed the condition of those roads to deteriorate, not the county. It's not our responsibility. We're here to help you all who have allowed Eldora and Sioux Road to become the roads that they are. We will do a temporary Band-Aid so that we can come in and do it correctly as fast as possible. But you know, being on the MPO board, you can't do it faster than 4 to 5 years.
Right.
So that's why we're proposing, just like you had requested from the commissioner, is to do a temporary overlay, a very expensive overlay. So
Either way, it's going to cost $1 million, right?
What's that?
Either way, it's going to cost 1.3 million.
Either way, what does that mean?
That we do an overlay like the MOU, or you come in and you put in the
The
roads.
county's committed to $1 million,
Right.
correct. But if we go to option A, the city has to pay the difference. That's the only difference.
Okay. I have no
Is that
further
it? Maybe
comments.
excuse?
Yes, thank you very much.
No,
I appreciate that.
I have a bit of a problem with this idea.
No. Please keep the comments down. We had time at open comments, please.
With this conversation of delaying and needing more time, I think that we've had plenty of time to review what's before us. We've had plenty of time to discuss. I'll give you an example. We don't have a city manager. We don't have a finance director. We have several positions that have yet to be filled because we want to take our time. We want to see. We want to look. We want to think about it. You know what? We need to do this, and we need to do it as soon as possible. The people have spoken, and if you haven't heard them, that's not my fault. That's yours. The people want this done, and they want it done now. And the longer we take in thinking about it, talking about it, the longer it's going to go, the worse the conditions are going to get, and the more expensive it's going to get. Because when we talk about road construction, every year the cost to build these roads goes up. every year the cost goes up. There has not been a single time in the last 10 years where road construction has gone down, as has been the case in other forms of construction, like home and commercial. With road building, it's never gone down. The longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be. And it's not going to be expensive just for us. It's going to be expensive for all those taxpayers out there. Today, it's going to cost them a penny. Next year, it's going to cost them 2 pennies. In 5 years, it's going to cost them 5 pennies. You know, that was something that I think was very important for everybody to understand. We can't afford to wait any longer. If you're talking about doing additional projects, let's do that. Let's do the additional project. I am all in favor of doing San Antonio, all in favor of doing both drainage projects. I'm in favor of doing all 3. We have the numbers here in front of us. We have the directive from the citizens of San Juan to get these projects done. Stalling is not going to make the problems go away. Stalling is not going to make it any less expensive. Quite the opposite. It's going to compound the problem, and it's going to make it more expensive to fix. I don't.
No, Mr. Ramiro. Mr. Trevino, please.
I don't think that we.
Next time, I'm going to remove you from. Please, can you please move then? Thank you, sir. Mr. Ramiro, Mr. Trevino, please. Mr. Trevino, please, Mr. Trevino, please leave. Mr. Trevino, please, Mr. Trevino.
You don't even pay taxes in this city.
No,
you
Mr.
don't
Trevino.
even pay taxes in this city. You don't even pay
Please
taxes
keep
in this
it.
city.
Can you remove him,
You don't even
please?
pay taxes in the city, and you have
That's
the audacity.
not a reason.
You have the
No.
audacity
No.
to come in here with
That's
that
enough.
foul mouth and that foul attitude.
is enough.
You don't even pay taxes, sir. Get a job.
Oh my God.
Get a job, sir. That's what you need to do so that you know about the expenses that people have to pay here. All you're doing is whackity, whackity, whack.
I'm going to recess this meeting if you are not quiet. You need to get a hold of yourself. I have a question from Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, we spoke of some numbers that Mr. Vela was discussing regarding some of those estimations on the taxes and the, I guess, the trend or what the numbers have been for over the years in the collections. And I think that's very necessary. That a delay tactic, it's like anything else. If we have everything before us, all the numbers that we need, and we had it right now, they've just said that they don't. I'm not going to make a decision that's going to commit the city, and next year we can't meet it or the following. It's got to be successful. It's got to be able to pay it. And if we means that we have a workshop in the next week, in the next couple of weeks, to get that done, that's what we do. You're buying a house, you don't buy it the first time you go there.
Well, this is not the first time we're going there.
No, you're right. But it's the
It's not.
first time that
We've
we're
been
having to
talking about
consider
this.
$5.7 million
On the
and
5.7
everything else that we're looking, and we need to be able to have that.
On the 5.7 million,
Commissioner
this isn't either the
Ramirez?
first time.
How long would it take us, Chief, to get those numbers?
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm gonna recommend that give us our staff another 30 days so we can be able to address issues of the options and the instrument necessary to find the instruments to finance these projects. We still have some gray area there that we need to actually look at some of the, we've been in meetings with Mr. Vela and discussion. We really we're not comfortable right now with making a decision as to the numbers that we're seeing. And we're projecting some numbers, and we're trying to look at where we're gonna find the funding source to fund this if approved. So my recommendation is, another 30 days so we can get we can probably set up a workshop the next 2 weeks or so, and then by then we should have some numbers that we can present.
If I may, why is it that we don't have those numbers available?
Well, one of the main things here, Commissioner, is the fact that we're trying to make sure that what exactly the direction that the city wants to move forward on this project. What are the projects? We talked about different projects on the north side and different projects on the south side.
So you're saying
We
that you
also-
can't give us an expectation of the city's financial status because we haven't decided on projects? We can't decide on projects until we know the financial status. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
Can you
no,
explain that to me?
the main, one of the main focus is the fact that we still have to look at our resources, where we're getting the resources to fund this particular projects. Right now, we look
But,
at,
if you'd allow me, Chief, I want to be clear about my question, because I don't think that you're answering the question that I'm asking. The mayor and Commissioner Garza have said they want to delay so that they can have the numbers available, okay? You're saying that you need us to tell you what we want to do so you could tell us what's available?
no, what we're,
So you're asking 30 days for what specifically?
well, 30 days, we can set up a workshop, or 2 weeks, maybe.
Well,
by-
but we're talking
Yeah.
about the numbers, though. You're
Well-
saying you needed 30 days to do the numbers.
Based on the staff, based on the recommendation of the staff, the finance director, and talking to Mr. Chris Vela, I think that we still need to go back and see exactly where the numbers are gonna come from, the finance sources for this. We're still not comfortable. We were looking at a number back in the workshop that we had, looking at $400,000 coming from the general fund and stuff like that we were looking at. We've been in discussions. Our finance director is still not comfortable addressing some of the numbers that we talked about. I think that, maybe by the next commission meeting, we should have some answers as to exactly what we need to do and how we're going to do it.
But do we know how much money we have and how much money we're gonna have?
No, that's exactly what.
Why don't we know that?
Well, one of the main things is we're trying to find out exactly how we're going to go back and look at our, get the sources, get the funding source for it. So it's still something that we're trying to address. Our account manager right now, you all are aware that we don't have a finance director, and he's doing the best he can. So
Well, I guess
still
that's
trying to find out,
that's kind of where I was getting at. So we don't have the numbers that you're saying that you need 30 days to produce because we don't have a finance director. Is that the short answer?
And the main thing here is the fact that we have to make sure, I have to make sure that our account manager right now is proposing and projecting the right numbers, and that's why we need to go back, and we're going back and looking at all the areas and the sources that we can, generate the revenue to fund this particular project that we're talking about.
At the end of the last workshop that we had, I made a motion that passed this commission on a 5-0 vote, and that was to produce the instrument and it's here, it says, see here, the procedure, method, and instrument necessary to obtain the city's required financial responsibility for the Hidalgo County Precinct 2 proposed roadway projects and the other projects discussed. And then the mayor went and she spoke about each one individually. And those included the 2 drainage projects and San Antonio. And that's what this agenda item that we have before us right now. And I'm assuming that's why not only Mr. Vela is here, but also Mr. Ramirez here. But what you're saying is that we should not take action today to begin the process of doing what it is that we need to do to borrow the money to make these projects, and that you need 30 days so that you can provide us with accurate numbers so that then we can begin the process then?
Oh, I mean, it can be by next meeting, we can have those numbers by the next meeting. So we just need to address those things that Mr. Vela has recommended for us. That's all I'm proposing.
Vela recommended? Vela?
Yes, sir. The discussion that we had, just to make sure that we cover the right information that we're going to provide.
We met this morning, and the plan was conditioned on the $400,000. The determination as to whether that money was there or was not there, or how much of it was there and how much they would need. Now, if the answer is not there as to the availability of the money, that plan is contingent on that.
Now, when we talked about the $400,000, it was spoken about with some certainty at the last workshop. Where did the $200,000 number come from? Because it was spoken about with some certainty that it was there.
That money was a different source of money. That was a general fund balance that the city manager was talking about. What we're talking about here is the balance in the interest and sinking fund, which under normal circumstances is a relatively easy number to identify.
So, and you're saying that there should be potentially, you needing to do your due diligence on that, that there should be potentially 400,000?
Specifically because of the draws that were being done on an annual basis and the availability of that money to be able to mitigate the tax rate impact. Now, it's very difficult to go forward with something of a plan if the certainty of the availability of that money is not there, depending, and I also said, depending on the tax collections, during the year. Now, if that money is ascertained, that's a different story. Or condition subject to, that's a different story. But I
want to make sure I understand something. So, in addition to the 400,000, that was spoken to with all certainty there potentially could be an additional 400,000. And that's what we want to give us some time to figure out. So we're talking about now
the first 400,000, Commissioner, was a number that was presented at that workshop that was going to be a projected fund balance increase. In other words, that your revenues were going to increase your expenditures by that amount at the end of the fiscal year. Okay? We're in April, May, June, July, August, and September. That was an estimate that was provided. Now, a lot of things can happen in 5 months on the general fund. The interest and sinking fund balance is a totally different balance. And all that it needs there is just for someone within the city to determine the balance that they have at the end of the fiscal year, how much of it they're using during the fiscal year, if any, and if those monies are available there to be appropriated the way we're talking about. Now, those were not substantial amounts of money either that we were using, but I believe in one of the alternatives. Let me get my numbers. If you look at the page number 2, where we have the combined county-city project and the city-only project, the first draw in fiscal 16 is $109,000. So what we're saying is, can we afford to dip into that fund for $109,000 and the city still be able to make its debt service payments from tax collections and the balance? I don't know what your historical, I don't know what your internal payments are, so it's very difficult for me to say. So I need to get some sort of clarity from your staff.
And you could have that by our next regularly scheduled meeting. Chief?
It's not for me to.
We can have that information. Because because that's something new that I'm hearing. These $400,000 over here, which considerably could be higher or lower, but I would say considerably higher because of the trend of our sales tax increase and our property valuation.
This has nothing to do with sales tax.
No, I understand, because you said if our revenue supersedes or is higher than our costs, well, isn't part of our revenue the sales tax?
Perhaps I led you astray here in the explanation. At the workshop, the representation that was made was that in the general fund, excess revenues would be approximately $400,000 over expenses at 9/30 15 or close of your fiscal year. This money has nothing to do with that.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying though is that that 400,000 could potentially be even higher because of
Or
our
not
increase
there.
in sales tax.
Well, considering,
And-
assuming that
And
tracks,
as you
yes.
also mentioned, the 7% property valuation increase as well.
Of course, that's next year.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, the question here is, what is the balance in the interest and sinking fund? How much, in other words, if the CFO or the chief financial officer or the city manager or the auditor or a combination of the three can come to us and say, yes, Mr. Vela, you can utilize these draws as you have them planned, we're prepared. The plan holds. Now, they're there to help you with the tax rate.
So it'll be an additional assistance to
Well,
help pay the debt.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to get close to, if you're looking at an assessed valuation of, for next year of approximately $912 million, at 100%, you're looking at about $91,000 per penny. So $109,000 is slightly over a penny that we're subsidizing with that. So it's significant, very significant. But it's not.
I think the 400,000 that we discussed at the last was projected by Mr. Gonzalez, was based on current expenditures, not taking into consideration some expenditures that we have not tapped into because we don't have them in place. So that's what my questioning was, are you assuring us? Because the trend in this commission in budgets that have been approved and then when we get audited have resulted in deficits which are made up by what we have in the unrestricted fund to meet our expenses. Right. So when so if the year 2012 and 2013 had a $600,000 deficit, how do we come up with 400,000 extra on this year? Because we had to absorb, and some of those were one-time expenses given, but some were not. Some were having to be carried on. And so that's why I think that when we look at those numbers and why now that you're saying potentially we need to look at them again, it's a very different thing if you're saying that's a realization right now based on the expenses that we have. And there's some things that are not going to be expended this year that may be expended next year because they've been budgeted. And so, so you're looking at not even getting into our general fund. You're looking at the fund that we were talking about for the debt servicing.
The debt service fund or the INS fund?
Because that would be more reliable for the long term based on past trends than the general fund.
Right.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, we find that interest and sinking fund balances in some cases have accumulated to certain levels at certain times that really, you know, should not be at those levels. So what we're saying here is, I don't know what your historical usage of your general fund, I mean your INS fund has been, and I asked that question this morning because we put it in red for obvious reasons to show that it was something that needed to be verified. And it's very simple. If you can verify it today and you're, you know, then obviously it's a different story.
Very good. Thank you.
So you by the next city meeting, you could have Chief, we can have those numbers.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we can have those numbers, yeah. And that's the dialogue that we've been having the last workshop. The numbers that we projected was based on the fact that we were projecting the savings cost for this year of 400,000. That's the number where it came from, based on the fact that we haven't hired city manager, city secretary, a lot of different positions, and some purchase of equipment. So that was for this year. So upon further discussion with Mr. Vela, that's where we started, you know, getting some numbers that were skewed and stuff like that. So we just want to make sure that we present the right numbers to the mayor and commission, and you know, and I've been in contact with our county manager, finance director, and we're going to get those numbers. So we're just trying ourselves also to make sure that we present something that's accurate, not something that we're not going to be able to afford and place the city in more debt. So we want to make sure that we give you the right numbers.
Going back to what Commissioner Garza asked, but as far as another workshop, is that something that we can do next week before our next meeting?
Yes, that's correct.
That way we can
Yeah, we can call a workshop
finalize it
anytime.
in the
Yes,
next meeting?
that's correct.
I agree. You want to put that in form of a motion, Mr. Ramirez? Commissioner Ramirez?
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner,
Tuesday?
just,
Is it Tuesday good for?
Mayor, if I may, I know that, I just want to clarify, on those 30 days, that was just an estimate that I myself personally gave 30 days. That's not something that I needed 30 days to get some answers. It was just something to give the commission some time to decide what the next steps. So, the 30 days have nothing to do with, we have to wait 30 days. We can do it next week, we can do it next week.
We need to have all the information before us
We've
to
been
make an
talking for
educated
two hours about
decision.
this going forward, but you already knew that we needed more time. How come you didn't tell us in the beginning? Hey, we need more time and.
No, Commissioner, because, it's all on the discussion as to, what the commission wants to discuss about the projects, stuff like that. So, we still, coming into this meeting also, I mean, it's something that, we talked to Mr. Vela that he was gonna present, and, and whatever, the American Commission questions had, then we're gonna take it further from there. So, we still had, some questions that are unanswered and some things that he asked us to get from him, and we're moving on that.
Any more questions for Mr. Vela?
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vela.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Mr. Vela. And Mr. Ramirez, thank you for being here. I'd like to make a motion that, that we table this item, and that we schedule a workshop for next Thursday, April 23rd.
Thursday?
Next Thursday, April 23rd.
What's wrong with
To discuss-
Tuesday?
There's some conflicts on Tuesday and Wednesday, Mayor.
I have one on Thursday.
Okay, then the 20th, Monday?
I can,
Monday the
Monday's
20th?
kind of, the staff, Monday? How about Wednesday?
Wednesday, there's a conflict.
No, I think this needs to be separate. Needs to be separate.
I'm available on Monday, and I'm available on Tuesday, and I'm available on Thursday.
I'm available Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Thursday?
Not Thursday, no, not Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Not Thursday.
So you're not available on
I can be Tuesday.
Monday?
The staff have enough time for Monday.
Leroy, do you have enough time for Monday? I think that's the only staff we're talking about, is that correct?
Chief, do you work on it or no?
You were,
Mr. Vela, are
Yeah.
you going to be available? I'm sorry? For the discussion? Okay. On when, Monday? Okay.
Does that work for everybody? Yeah. Then I'll amend my motion then to table this item and to take this item up at a workshop to be scheduled and called for April 20th at 6 p.m.
Okay, I think that's a little different. You made a motion, but I just need to ask for clarity. Did you want that to be for the discussion with the numbers or a workshop to talk about assessments?
Assessment.
Okay, that's different than what he's proposing.
The numbers will come to us at the meeting.
The numbers, the numbers. But you also want to have an assessment, correct?
Right.
First.
Two different workshops? Or one workshop?
Workshop on the 20th to discuss the project itself, and then the 28th, we finalize. We should have the numbers, right, Chief, by the 28th?
Right, so the workshop is on Monday, and then the final numbers for the next meeting. Which is the 28th. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, is that what you meant?
I'd like to table, I want to take this item up, and then I'm willing to amend my motion to include Mr. or Commissioner Ramirez's interest in the suggestion for the assessment and.
Okay, assessment on 4/20/14, and then based on those results for it to be entertained at the 4/28 meeting. It's been motioned by, amended and motioned by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Well, we needed to table it. We're just motioning on the,
I thought it was mentioning the table and then the other item.
okay. Should we get it separate motions?
That's fine, you already done that.
That's fine. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Item B, presentation, discussion regarding the schedule of a master plan workshop. Mr. Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to come before you tonight. I want to commend all of you for your efforts in trying to improve our community. I know it's a hard job. I come before you to recommend to see when the commission can get together to start discuss projects within the tier zone that was approved by the commission. And the reason this is important is that I would like to have some dates. There's a calendar in front of you when we could meet so that I can present it to my EDC board and let them know that we would like to meet during this time. We have some projects that are coming up and interested people in these projects in these tier zone areas that would like to know the direction of the city before they move forward. And I think it's important that we schedule, concurrent with our EDC board, a joint workshop to discuss projects I think that could have an impact on the needs of the city. So I think if the commission would, there's a calendar in front of you, some dates when you would be available, so I could take back to my EDC board and see what dates the board could also meet, so that we could schedule a meeting to discuss upcoming projects. There's things that need to be discussed before these projects come to town in reference to ordinances, overlays, and things like that. So we just need direction from our EDC board and the city commission.
Now, is it meetings like once a month, or what are we looking at?
Well, I think the first meeting will lay down the groundwork, and if we need to have another meeting a month later, we will have another meeting. This is not a one-all solve problem meeting. It would be just to start laying the groundwork and the vision that the city commission, the mayor and the commissioners have concerning these projects that are coming into San Juan. And so I think it's crucial, but that we have the guidance of the city and the support of the city, and these projects and these stakeholders just want to know, I guess, the rules of the game as they move forward.
I mean, I guess you kind of heard the conversation about where we're at with scheduling for next week, so I think
Yes, sir.
next week is probably out of the question.
Okay.
If the commission would like to take a minute to look at the calendars, or is this something that you all would prefer to look at what is being presented before us as far as dates, and then maybe we can send those dates to Sandra, our city secretary, Ms. Ramirez,
Okay.
so that then she could coordinate, or maybe you could send an email requesting availability. And I would say just so that we can get the first one off, maybe if y'all could consider that last week of April or the first week of May, it's just so we can get that first one going. As you mentioned, I'm sure there's going to be multiple meetings that are going to be needed, but if we can get that first one going, that last week of April, first week of May, is that something y'all?
I'd say the first week of May, since we're already going to be
busy
on the 28th.
28th, we have a city commission. Yeah.
So I think the best time would be
That first week in May.
I don't know.
So do y'all want Sandra to send us an email requesting our availability?
Yeah, because I don't know.
For that first week in May, same here.
No, that is perfectly fine. I just want to be able to kind of start moving that direction. I think it's crucial that the city commission and the EDC work together to start planning the business projects that are coming to the city of San Juan, especially those in the TER zone area that we've already approved.
Do we need to
It's no action.
take action, just,
No,
okay.
no, no,
So
just so
Sandra,
that,
you'll send us an email asking
just to
our
update.
availability for that first week of May?
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor
you.
and Commissioners.
Item C, presentation and update on the water plant number 2. Mr. Cruz.
Mayor, Commissioner, you have my memo in your packet. I guess we can go down to number 5. Contract days used by Friday, April the 10th is 271 days, which is 41% of the project. Remaining is 389 days. So basically, they have about a year to complete the project. As far as time's concerned, it's okay. The time is all right, but there's some other issues that will be discussed. Amount billed to date is 2.434 million, which is 29% of the project, and that's probably about where the project is right now, 29 or 30%. The work that's been done is the electrical. All the ducts have been completed, so now it's going to be overhead construction for the electrical. The clear cones, if you look at them, they're being constructed right now. They're as of April the 10th, they were 60% complete. Now they're probably more in the 80% because they work even when it's been raining. They work every day.
Good.
The filter security wall, it progressed and then it stopped again, but it's high enough so we can pour the foundation for the filters, where the filters are going to go. So where it's at, it's okay, but we need to continue with the foundation of the filters and the clear well. Those are very crucial for this job because CB&I is mobilized to the plant. If they're not done within their time limit, they will leave, and then there'll be another issue. So we're really pushing the contractor to get those 2 items done, completed. The transfer line
Made him aware of that?
Oh yes,
Okay.
several times. And
their response?
CB&I has actually told them this is what we need. The
Water
responsive.
Development- I'm sorry, Ronnie, excuse me. So, on Water Development Board's also aware,
Yes.
and have
Yeah.
they recommended any?
Well, actually, if the filter foundation will be poured this week, what they were scheduled, it would be on schedule. The problem is the clear well, because the clear well is a big hole, if you notice out there, and every time it rains, it's full of water. Now,
Forecasted to rain.
yeah,
most this week.
but we're not. The scheduling was a contractor issue because they've had a lot of time to do this. Now it's been raining, it's causing another issue. I mean, all we can hope is that it doesn't rain and they get them poured and CB&I continues working till they're done. That's what we're pushing. And I guess we can almost pray for it not to rain, at least at the plant for the next 2 or 3 weeks. The transfer line, there is a part of the transfer line that got put onto this project, which is from the plant to the fence, to the south fence, and that's been completed. And that's where OG Construction is going to come and tie in when they're complete with their project, which I know that lady mentioned putting some lines down Sioux Road. Well, that is the line coming to tie into that line. All submittals are up to date. Obviously, they're going to continue working on their clear cones and the electrical. Where the filter foundation work, the security wall, the clear well projected delivered might be postponed until mid-May, which if that does happen, it might be to our best interest, especially if the foundation is not poured. And the chemical building is being worked on as we speak. So I know there's a lot of rumors out there of what's happening, and we're on it. We really are. The project, it's really a contractor issue, but it is our project, so we are on it. We're making sure that we cover everything anything that could happen, that we're covering it. If there any questions that y'all might have?
What you've been doing, keep us informed, especially with those new developments that you're seeing.
Yeah.
To make sure
we'll
that
have another report in the next meeting, and we will have the next monthly meeting. I think it's scheduled for actually, we're going to have one tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't know if I told you what we did. We're having one weekly now, every Wednesday at 10, including the one in the end of the month with Water Development Board, because we've been doing this for the last month because of what the things we're seeing, and the people that are showing up to the meeting are not some of the people that we want there at the monthly meeting when the Water Development Board's there. So they're not being aired out, and we're telling the contract or subcontract to spill it out what's going on, because if it's not said or written, we don't know. Rumors we can't deal with.
Go ahead.
If you have any questions, that's all the report, if there's any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Go ahead.
Mr. Cruz, as the Water Development Board, and I know that you said it's rumor, but has the Water Development Board addressed any of the concerns from what the rumors are?
No, not at this point, because they're not, we're just getting phone calls. So,
Nothing substantiated.
No.
Anything.
We haven't. I know that there's.
But there is one major issue, and that is the payment to Chicago Bridge and Iron. And if that payment doesn't get made, they demobilize.
I think that's been made. That one has been made.
So then they're not going to demobilize.
No. The only reason they would demobilize now is if when they're ready to work on the filters, when they're done with the Claricones, they need to go to the filters, and the foundation is not poured, they're leaving. So that's the big issue right now.
That will create an expense. Who will be responsible for that expense?
That's a contractor.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Item D, presentation on departmental reports. Chief Gonzalez?
Yeah, Mayor Commissioner, there's a packet of the police department, the finance department, the fire department that was submitted there in your packet. If you all have any questions on it,
I do have questions for Chief Garza. Maybe not so much of a question, but just a follow-up with the, we talked about the program that we had, the pickups with the dogs and the neutering or spading of the animals. If you can give us some feedback as how successful that was on the first one and what you project to see in the next runs. Good evening.
I explained, with approval from the city manager, we started the pickup program with low cost spade and neuter clinic out of McAllen. What they do, they set up, they advise the residents, local residents, they either put it on, we haven't put it on the website, we just worked it out. They did their first pickup on the 3rd, and the 13th, I'm sorry. And it worked out well where residents come and drop off their dogs or cats or whatever pet it is there at the fire station, and then they transport them to the clinic, and they actually do the surgery overnight, and then they bring them the following day within 24 hours and deliver them back to the residents. It's a process that I had been working on with this clinic, and I was able to get them to where they can do that for now, but actually we're looking into maybe doing the actual surgeries here in the city. It's just a matter of work coordinated with the vet, because he's only available on Thursdays, and I would like to look for a facility so we can start getting this program going. One of the things that it's very low cost, very efficient, or affordable. In other words, you can get the animal either spayed or neutered and microchipped for about $25. So it's something that I'm working on, but like I said, for right now, for the start, they picked up 26 animals, and then they were delivered back the following day. So it worked out great. People were comfortable, I guess, leaving their animals. They're air conditioned and they're pampered, very good service, in other words. So this was the first month that we tried it. They're going to do another pickup next Thursday. So we're going to see how it works. It worked out fine for the first time, so it's something that I think it's going to be a plus for us, so to see if we can get control of this animal population in the city. So if any of you all know, or neighbors or anything that want.
I had a question.
Sure.
It's my understanding that they're going to be, or they're under construction for a
new
rescue,
facility.
but it's going to be a rescue as opposed to
Yes, that's, I just read, that just came out in the paper sometime last week. I think it's a $3 million
Is that something that
facility.
you'll be able to contract with, or?
I believe we're gonna continue, Mayor Pro Tem, because currently the city, that's gonna be our only option. That's the only option we have, because we don't have anything else. We don't have, unless we start looking into maybe doing a facility here in the city, but that's pretty expensive. It's a cost.
Is it gonna be an expansion of Palm Valley Animal Shelter, or is it a separate? Because I was under the impression that it was a separate facility where it was basically a no-kill.
A no-kill, yes. It'll be a separate facility. I don't know if you read it, it was in this Sunday's paper again, on how many animals are actually put down on a yearly basis. I think, you know, numbers are really outrageous. You know, and some of these people, you know, we get these, usually in every month, monthly report, you'll see that I submit how many residents actually go and surrender their animals. It's pretty steep. We used to get charged for that, now they don't charge us for that. So it's a plus, but the numbers are high, very high. So like I said, it's work in progress. I guess that's the first step, and hopefully, like I said, we can find a facility here where they can actually do the surgeries during the day. It would be a plus, but for now, that's a start.
So we'll continue putting it on our website and.
Yes, ma'am.
So that folks can become more familiar. And
correct.
The frequency, what kind of?
It's every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Every 14 days, they'll pick up and drop off. I've got one of my personnel that'll go in the system for, it takes about 45 minutes to pick up all the animals, and then 45 minutes to deliver them back to the owners.
Is there a cap, like as far as how many animals?
No, sir. She told me as many as they could bring, they would take. And they sit there, and like I said, the vehicle is completely air conditioned and everything, so the animals are secured. It's a start.
Great service.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Any other questions on any of the departments? Thank you, Chief. Moving on, public hearing ordinance. A, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance for the conditional use permit for a drive-in business at the proposed Popeyes Snow Whiz, legally described as lots 17 through 21, Tierra del Sol number 2 subdivision, located at the northeast corner of Veterans Boulevard and 7th Street, as represented by Virginia and Michael A. Garza. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, the applicants are proposing to relocate Snow Whiz, located just north of this property. They are proposing to build a 25-foot by 60-foot building, and once relocated, rent the existing building for another business. The proposed entrance will be along 7th Street and the exit along Veterans Boulevard. The proposed new building will have 2 drive-through windows along the north and south side of the building, with more stacking space, which will help alleviate the traffic congestion the existing business generates. A public hearing was held on this request by the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 2nd, 2015. There were some concerns during the public hearing about traffic the project will generate and how it will impact the neighborhood. The Planning and Zoning Commission, with a 5-0 vote, recommended approval of the conditional use permit with the condition that an 8-foot opaque fence be installed between the property and the alley, and limiting the traffic exiting the establishment to only go north, as shown in option B in your packet, to minimize traffic accidents.
I'd like to go ahead and open this public hearing at 8:15. Are there any comments from the public for or against? You come forward, please. Please state your name for the record.
Michael Anthony Garza. I am will be the future owner of this building, and the current co-owner of the existing building right now in 619 South Veterans. My parents run it full time right now. They're kind of old timers. They want to resign. They want to retire. This is my idea for this plan for this lot. The only problem is that planning and zoning last week, they want my traffic to go north, all of my traffic, and that, if you'll see from the sketch here on option A, that's B right there. Well, I'm sorry, option A right there. The exit going north, or the exit coming out on I Road, there's a divider that goes north and south, because I have 2 sides, 2 lanes. I got the north side window, and I got south window. What they don't know is that I've talked to the city of FAR, and the city of FAR is going to put a light there on that corner to alleviate traffic. What we see here on this plan is the best method of traffic. As you know, if you go down I Road, there's Vanguard, there's Cans and Kegs, there's Popeye Snow Whiz right now. It's just congested. There should have been a light a long time ago. There's a tremendous amount of accidents there on that corner. Every year, no one's lost their life, thank God, you know.
Talking about Kelly and I Road?
Yes, ma'am. My sister just had one this year, as a matter of fact, a little fender bender. But you know, you got people coming out of the Kelly trying to wait. Am I going to go? Am I going to go? You know, just yes or no.
You have a turning lane too, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and after looking at it, that is actually, and if you go to, okay, the B's there, if I do that, you're forcing the traffic on the south side, which is a single lane car, to go north, but that's gonna bottleneck all my traffic coming in from this side, on the north side. If I have to move cars back on the north side, then it's gonna bottleneck the cars coming in. If, you know, it'll eliminate the second row of lanes that I have there. Go ahead.
Okay, I am gonna ask you a question. Now, was the designation on your plan though an only entrance, only way to enter would be on one side?
Right now, we in the current Popeyes that we have here, we've changed the entrance and exit 3 times due to traffic, due to residential, due to problems, due to the apartment complex, the daycare center, and we had to purchase a lot next door for the current owner that has it right here. So we're coming in and making a 3-point U-turn and coming back out the same entrance right now. We've looked at it always for the past 15 years. This is the best solution that we can come up with to accommodate more cars at a faster time, faster pace, more jobs. Right now it's more jobs, more sales tax, more property tax, all that good stuff, right? But this is the only method that I got my architect here, he can vouch for saying that. We've looked at traffic coming north, entering from the right. And entering from the south, entering from the north, any which way we could.
So I guess if we're looking at I think I would be concerned about traffic backing up on a residential 7th Street. You've got definitely more lanes on I Road. So if the way I'm seeing it is that the entrance would be off of 7th Street, you're allowing room so that folks can line up inside your property rather than on the streets.
Right.
Spilling out to, now, that other lane in the very top, that's like for overflow?
Right, for a high volume or
Okay.
big orders,
Okay.
I can actually move to the side.
So the challenge that you're saying is really, how do we get everybody to leave without causing accidents? And I think that's the concern
Exactly.
that the folks have. You're saying, you're looking at having some people actually turn south.
Right, due to the fact that the new light is gonna be put there on the corner, would actually give some people some time to get out. Not versus having to go everybody north and having to worry about making a U-turn somewhere around the way.
How close is the next exit from the business, from the next business next to it? Is it O'Reilly's?
Right next to going north?
Is apartments, right?
Right next to that is what our current Popeyes.
Right.
And then after
And
that
then
is
it's
the
the
daycare
apartments?
center,
The
and then it's the
daycare.
apartments.
The apartments, okay. So not too high traffic in area except for the residential apartments?
Correct.
Okay.
And daycare. And that's traffic's going through the alley behind us, that you see there.
So, Mr. Cervantes, I know that the concern was the accidents that possibly could happen, and he's talking about past trends. In looking at the design, what is your?
Staff has no objection with option A. Option B is something that the Planning and Zoning Commission came up with, but staff, I think option A works just fine. And the proposal is to build a small island right there, so there's going to be arrows this way and then arrows that way. So if you're going north, you're supposed to be over here. If you're going south, you're supposed to be over here.
Okay,
and that will prevent accidents, in my
It's
opinion.
going to be designated as only an entrance. You're not going to have. You're not going to allow traffic to come in.
This is going to be all exits. The entrances are going to be here. It's just in the exits, we're going to designate one lane for going south, which is this one, and then 2 lanes going north, which are these ones. It's going to have a small island right there to separate the people going north and the people going south. HEV has one at the entrance on Veterans, has one of those little islands, and I think it's very effective for the most part in channeling the traffic and preventing accidents. So I think option A will work for this project, in my opinion.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cervantes, I've gotten several calls from the residents that live immediately to the east, and they said that recently, not for a very long time, but recently, and I don't know what caused this, but there's been a lot of flooding because water is coming at an angle from the alley into their backyards. In fact, they showed me pictures where water is coming all the way to their door. Sure, yeah, I'm curious about what's causing that.
There are two issues to that, and the main issue right now is that there's some people that live in the apartments that when they exit on a rainy day like this, they'll go into the empty property and do donuts, and so that is creating a big old ditch, yeah, and it's going downhill, and in a hard rain like last night, I guarantee you, that place is flooded. Or the alley is, or where they're running into that donuts, that's a big old puddle.
And that's in the alleyway, is what you're saying? They're doing that in the alleyway?
Another thing is, there's condolas, since it's a commercial, there's condolas back there. There's, well, I guess a trash can?
Trash can, okay, yeah.
So you get the big truck that comes in, it comes in with a fork and it picks it up, it's that type. So there's mine, there's a daycare, and then there's the apartments. Well, when there's standing water like that, the big truck comes in, and yeah, it goes into, I'd say 2 foot of mud. So there's a big old hole where the tires come in, and that right there is creating a big old flood problem, so it's all kind of coming down to the alley. Just an FYI. But as far as that,
if you put that fence there, so first of all, you're gonna put your business there, that'll keep them from doing the donuts on that property.
Yeah.
But if you put that fence there, that would you, and because you've been here, I know that business has been there for years. If you put that fence there, do you believe that that'll alleviate some of the traffic? Obviously, not the trash trucks.
Not the traffic from the apartments and the daycare. The apartments and the daycare. But that's the only traffic that goes in. My traffic will not go through the alley.
Right.
There would be no way they.
No, and
there
that's
would
what
be
I
no
meant.
reason.
So does the apartments, Mr. Juan, does the apartments have an exit out that way, or?
Well, there's one way to, the apartments have parking in the east end of the complex. There's some parking spaces on the east end. So I guess they're using the alley to access those parking spaces.
The access that they have?
Yes. But I can visit with Mr. Gonzalez and see if we can come up with a solution to the flooding problem.
I recommend that, and the two folks that I met with are the ones that are immediately off of 7th Street on the corner, and then there's, I think, an empty lot.
Yes.
And then the other house, those two, both of those families, and they showed me pictures of some of the flooding and
we can probably meet with Mr. Cruz also and see if we can come up with a solution to that problem for those people.
Any other questions, any other comments from the public for or against?
Was there any, I'm sorry, Mayor, was there any opposition?
Just that lady that about the flooding, she was concerned about the traffic. I think this project will improve the situation from the.
I spoke to her, and she's not opposed to the business. Yes. She would just like some sort of so that you know, she's not opposed to the business. She wanted some, some help on the flooding.
And we'll work on that.
Okay. What about any residents from the right off the 7th Street, south?
No,
of anybody?
No, it's just a lady across the alley. She's the only one that showed up to the public hearing.
Okay.
But she didn't say.
She just expressed concerns. She wasn't in opposition.
Any other questions? All right. I'd like to go ahead and close this public hearing at 8:26. And how are we looking at this, as just a public hearing with a vote or no?
I need a vote, yes.
Okay, then the vote is going to be coming as a recommendation from the planning and zoning.
But if you're in agreement with option A, which is what the second wants, and staff has no objections to that, if you can agree to option A, and then the fence requirement.
Go ahead.
Do you have a preference? I think you mentioned option A was your preference. Option B is something that you would not really.
Correct, option A.
And there's, to your knowledge, there's going to be a signal light installed at 7th Street and Veterans.
Correct. Kelly and Veterans and 7th and Veterans.
You know when?
I don't have the projected time, but I'll tell you that they already laid the meter readings and then the rubber seals that go on the ground for a count. But I can get that information to you as soon as possible.
I think that would be important. It might be a matter of maybe having you turn north until that gets installed.
It's gonna be done way before the building gets done.
Okay.
I'm already projecting to remove the dead palm tree that's on the corner, and from what I've been told, it can come down on anybody very soon, so it's gonna happen soon.
Yeah, because that I think that would be, it is a concern because the traffic is fast on that road. And the last thing we want is to create a possible hazard by having people going all different directions. Do we have another reading on this one after this?
Yes, today's first reading, next meeting will be the second reading of the
Okay,
ordinance.
can you check on, Mr. Garza has provided what he has, information he has from the city of FAR. Can you check with them as well, please, to verify what he is saying as far as timing as well? We may take that to consideration, because I definitely would not want to create something if it doesn't have that, because you will have more, you're actually facilitating for more people at a faster rate. So there would be more people moving into a fast road. So I can see the concern from the planning and zoning. So I'd like to be able to have that information at the next meeting.
I will check with the city of FAR and I'll give you a report in your next meeting.
Okay. All right, is there a motion for approval allowing access out of the property in both directions, with also the understanding that we're going to get a verification on the streets?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you,
Good luck.
Mr. Garza. You didn't bring any samples, sir?
No.
Okay.
Next week.
All right. Contractual resolutions. A, consider authorizing the interim city manager to purchase a 2015 Ford F-250 3/4 ton pickup truck in the amount of $23,937, and 3 Ford F-150 trucks in the amount of $58,170 for Caldwell County Ford from Caldwell, Texas, a buy-board vendor. Ms. Gonzalez.
Good evening, Commissioner. On September 23rd, 2014, when the budget process was in place, the commission approved the purchase of the 1 F-250 3/4 ton pickup and 3 F-150s trucks. The Ford F-250 3/4 ton will be utilized by the Water Distribution Department. The truck is going to be replacing Unit 232. The Unit 232 will be used as a standby. The Ford F-350 trucks one will be issued to the environmental coordinator, who will transfer his Unit 413 to the recycle laborer. The remaining 2 Ford F-250s will replace Unit 408, a 1999 Ford Crown Victoria, and Unit 410 of 2000 Ford F-150 in the sanitation department. The units 408 and 410 will be issued to the street department, and the estimated delivery is 120 to 150 days.
I have a question. I know that we were trying to identify the monies available for the asphalts, and you were mentioning that we had 15,000 left, more or less, if I remember, Mr. Gonzalez, that we didn't have enough in the budget to probably get us through the rest of the rainy season in the summer. How much are you estimating that we would need to put into the fund for asphalt? Okay. And I think that we need to get ready to prepare for that, to be able to replace that. So I'm going to suggest, although we did approve all the trucks, that if we can go with 2 trucks instead of the 3, to be able to supplement the asphalt, because we need that.
If I can, I'm sorry, Mayor, if I could just, I would agree with that, but I would want that to be in the motion so that that money doesn't end up somewhere else. That money immediately gets put into that line item.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
That the line item that you're speaking about is in the streets department, and this money is coming out of sanitation.
Okay, and we can't,
Are those restricted funds?
Yes, you can't take money from one to the other. But I am meeting with Mr. Gonzalez, and we're trying to find monies within the street department to move into the road material so that we can have enough funds, you know.
I just want to, just to be clear, so because it's the sanitation, it's restricted, it could only be used
Yes,
for
one is
the
general, the
sanitation
other's the
department.
solid waste.
I just, my thought was it's Mr. Gonzalez, so it's also
Yeah.
my streets.
Well, I'm glad you tried, and I'm glad she was on her toes too, so everybody's.
And we don't need any type of
Doing what they're
adjustments on
supposed to be.
our budget when it comes to the sanitation, do we? We don't need any adjustments that you can foresee at this point when it comes to sanitation. Okay. All right. That being said, is there a motion for approval as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Suarez. All in favor state aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Consider authorizing the interim city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding between Texas Department of Public Safety and the San Juan Police Department, a local law enforcement agency of Hidalgo County, Texas, conjunction with the Texas Anti-Gang Center. Captain Cáceres.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. Here was an MOU to be presented between the Texas Department of Public Safety and the San Juan Police Department. It's to head up the Texas Anti-Gang Center, which will be housed in West Local, and it will be run by the DPS, Texas Department of Public Safety. Right now, with the MOU, they're asking for manpower from us, which will be just one officer to be dedicated to the group. At this time, the availability of the officers are going to this group is feasible. We won't miss them. we have all our shifts covered, and the manpower it's there. So.
And that would be, when you say dedicated, that's for the 40 hours a week type of, or whatever shifts they would have had with us?
Yes, ma'am.
At all times?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, are there any questions? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
C, consider preliminary and final plat approval of the Sanchez subdivision being a 4.10 acre tract of land out of Lot 11, Block 17, John Klausner subdivision located approximately a quarter of a mile east of Veterans Boulevard along north side of FM 495 as requested by R. Gutierrez Engineering Corporation. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, the applicant is proposing to divide the 4.10 acres into one commercial lot. He is proposing to subdivide the property in order to build an outdoor event center. Last year, the majority of the property was rezoned from single-family residential to general business district to enable Mr. Sanchez to build his proposed event center in the property. The north one-third of the property is zoned single-family residential and will remain as vacant land. The project engineer is requesting a variance to the 15-foot utility easement requirement along the south 499.99 feet of the west side of the property to reduce it to 10 feet since the property is very long and narrow to give the owner a little bit more buildable area. Planning and zoning met on April 2nd and recommended approval unanimously with the variance request.
So we've already approved, we just approved
You approved the zoning last year.
zoning, and this is
the subdivision, yeah.
the plating and
Yes.
recording. But he is gonna move forward with an event center.
Yeah.
Have we had any additional complaints from, I forget the gentleman's name?
Mr. Eastwood?
Mr. Eastwood.
No,
How could I
I
forget?
haven't heard from him.
Chief, or Mr. Katz, or Captain Cáceres, have we received any phone calls from Mr. Eastwood regarding trash or debris being dumped onto his property? And the reason I'm sorry. Not since the meeting that he was here. Okay. The reason I say that is because he was very adamant about that. He had been continuously communicating with either City Hall or the police department. Nobody had done anything. But Chief, if I recall correctly, you said in your research you had no reports from him, and I think that was the same thing from City Hall, that he just hadn't complained about it. So I just want to make sure that we haven't had any more. And I do remember, was it you and Mr. Gonzalez went out there? And what did you all see when you all went out there? I did as well, and I also did not get any response. So, well, I think that we've done what we can by way of making ourselves available to address his concerns. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cervantes, does if the variance is given from 15 to 10 feet, that would just be the easement. It doesn't affect any other setbacks that he may be requesting for buildings and...
No, it's just, for all subdivisions, we require a 15-foot utility easement along all sides. But this property, because it's very long and narrow, it really reduces your buildable area, because you cannot build on top of a utility easement. So they're asking for that reduction to allow a little bit more building room in the south side of the property. We're gonna build the center.
Still, they're not gonna come back for another variance for buildings and setbacks on those kinds of things?
No, no, this will be it.
All right, are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion for approval as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Cervantes. I think you have the next one as well. C, consider abandonment of the city right-of-way between lots 1, 18, 17, and lot 2, block 58, San Juan Original Townsite Subdivision, located at 1001 South Nebraska Avenue, as requested by Pastor Tim Huffman on behalf of First Baptist Church. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, the city of San Juan received a formal request from the First Baptist Church to abandon city right-of-way that is used as an alley between Nebraska and Kansas Avenue, just south of 10th Street. The alley is currently being used by city personnel to collect brush from that city block. The church owns the properties to the west and east of this request and would like for the right-of-way to be abandoned so that church officials can fence it and prevent accidents. The church has plans to make improvements by installing new playground equipment to the property to the east of the request. Once the fence is installed, the congregation believes they could better enjoy the playground area. Staff recommends denial of the request because the alley is still being used by the Public Works Department for the pickup of brush within the block. In addition, the fire department has expressed opposition to the request since they believe the department will have a harder time accessing the site in case of a fire. If the request is approved, a survey will need to be conducted by a licensed surveyor, and then an appraisal will need to be conducted for the property to be abandoned by a licensed professional. The cost of both will have to be paid by the church. Once an appraisal is received, the city could then sell the land to be abandoned for the price of the appraisal. The Planning and Zoning Commission, with a 5-0 vote, recommended approval of the abandonment of the city right-of-way with the condition that coordination with the fire department takes place to have access to the alley in case of an emergency, and with the condition that a utility easement remain at the site.
Okay, any questions? I have some questions, I'm sorry. I have some questions, Mr. Cervantes. The closest home to the back on the alley, when I look at the pictures from the, I guess it's from the north side looking in, how many of those streets are, I mean, what houses or property line is abutting the alley? 3 houses? Okay. And how far are those from the alley? I mean, is there a house next to the alley? Is it?
No.
They're side by side. The houses are side by side.
Okay.
Next to the church.
Next to behind the church. Okay.
Now, the remaining part of the alley will remain there.
Okay.
So it's just a section.
We're not we're shutting the whole thing down.
No,
okay.
It's just a section within the church.
Okay.
The remaining alley that goes east and west, and then the remaining alley that goes south will remain the way it is. So traffic will still travel going east or going south.
Okay.
It's just within the church boundary. That's the request.
Oh, okay.
Only.
So you would still have access for them to put their brush, is that correct?
The rest of, as far as brush, the rest of the block should be able to operate without any problems.
Okay. And I guess the question then would be, Chief Garza, and I saw the statements that were taken by the representatives from the church and regarding working with you concerning I guess whatever concerns you were. They said
concerns are, Mayor, being that it's the old town site, we don't have any dedicated fire lanes in that area due to the size of the property and the size of the building, we would utilize that in case of a fire there, we would utilize that as an access road for the fire department. I think the misinterpretation here was that we were treating it as a business. That's not the plan. The thing is that now we require every building, new building that comes into the city to have an access road, you know, a 20-foot access road so our trucks can fit. That's my only thing. Now, another option that we can throw out there is if they decide, I understand they're looking at the kids' safety. I mean, if they're willing to sprinkle the building, then we can let them have that access road. We'll set up the FTC, which is the fire department connection, on the north side of the building, and that'll eliminate, the only reason we're requesting the denial on this is for an access road for us, being that there's.
For the building itself?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Not the residential?
No, ma'am, no. Just,
Everybody residential is taken care of?
Yes. Okay. I'm talking about just the facility, the property that they're requesting to enclose with a fence. We would utilize that as an access road. Being that it's the old town site, we don't have no room there to designate any fire lanes. So I feel that it'll make our job a lot harder if it's fenced in. The road won't be accessible to us, and it's gonna make things more difficult. Now, option they want for us to approve that. If they're willing to sprinkle the building, then they can, you know, I would approve them fencing in that property.
That have had a discussion with,
The last discussion that we had, Mayor, was in reference to, that option. I didn't put it out there because I just, you know, actually I'm seeing that they're really interested in getting that property approved like that. Now, if they're willing to put a sprinkler system in the building, I mean, it'll make our job a lot easier. But the discussion that we had was in reference, we all went to the table, had Mike out there from utilities, sanitation. The issues that they have also is the same thing, Mayor, that they still utilize that road to pick up the brush. Now, if they were to fence it in, the city truck would have to reverse back to 11th Street to be able to get out of there after they pick up the brush, which is making it more difficult for their operations too. And I believe the water line's right in the middle too.
oh, I mean, and the water line would be, it'd just be a dedicated easement, correct?
Yes.
And they could still, can you still fence around that? We can, as long as we're given access, is that correct?
That's the only issue that was brought up. I think it's on the fire department and utilities and sanitation.
You know, I think that that if we're working, I think to beautify anything is important. I see the value of what they're trying to do, and I think whatever option you're talking about right now, I don't know if they've had an opportunity to discuss that.
No.
So, you know, personally, I believe that if they are offering to make it a better looking place, and still though having enough left over to run our operations, that we take a look at that. I think what he's talking about is, I'm not sure how much that would be for the existing business. I think I'm sorry, for the church.
Yes.
We said business, for the church, to have that discussion if fire and that is an issue. I read on the discussion from the planning and zoning, and at that time, were you present?
No, ma'am.
You weren't present?
I was out of town.
Because they seem to indicate that whatever needed to be accessed would be accessed, and basically it's gonna affect their building, as long as it's not affecting the residential.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's something that they're having to take into consideration.
Yes.
So I don't know that, at this point, that unless they've been brought to the table to discuss on the fire,
as far as
it's changed from the time they went to the planning.
No, ma'am. I didn't offer that as far as the sprinkler system, but it's one of the options that actually, you know, sitting there, I see that they're willing, they really want to do this. I mean, my only option to them is that if they sprinkle the building, you know, that'll work. But I don't know if it's going to work on behalf of the other department. I'm speaking only for the fire department, as far as, you know, the utilities and sanitation.
Chief, just because it was part of the discussion where they were saying if they come in off of Kansas, the brush truck, they'd have to go back out. There's no way they can make that turn there south onto the alley?
It's a real sharp turn. I mean, that's one of the discussions that we had, was at one of those points that as far as And closing it like that was gonna make it more difficult for them. But I think priority more was life safety. It was the fire department, us.
And there was also the mention of the water line.
Yes, we have water and sewer lines there, so we will have to retain a utility easement in case we have to service those lines.
There's a section of in that area they want to block off that is a 6-inch steel line that's been proposed. We're proposing to actually change it out. We've got a section of it that we said we're going to start.
So we have some work to do there right now.
As far as the sewer, we're going to do abandonment in that area where we're proposing as well as a couple of
I know they mentioned here as far as preventing accidents. What kind of accidents have occurred there? That's my first question.
If you could come to the mic.
Oh,
State your name for the record.
Okay, Pastor Tim Huffman, First Baptist. You know, the possibility of a fire, you know, if we, you know, we're saying there could be a possibility, there may or may not be. As far as our kids going from the building across the alley to that property, they're crossing the alley. I look at that, you know, we have that possibility just as much as a fire, so can one happen more than the other? I don't know. This whole spraying thing, you know, is news to us. We haven't heard that, which you brought up. Just for the record for myself, and I'm not sure how this might enter the picture, but as far as doing an appraisal, buying it from the town, I haven't heard anything concerning that either. So I probably need to throw that in there. I don't know where that leaves us.
So up to this point, there hasn't been any accident?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But neither have there been fires either that I know of.
Okay.
And I guess
I think you just said something that's very significant though, because in order to do this, it would require, as Mr. Cervantes mentioned, an appraisal, a cost, and then, you know, an agreement. We can't just, you know, you can't just give it away. In other words, you know, and if you
Okay, the city has never done that, anything like that?
I'm
Because
not
my
gonna say
understanding
never, but never
was
since.
that has happened. I may be wrong about that.
And I was gonna say, I'm not gonna say never because I
Mhm.
can't, but.
And no prices have been mentioned, so that,
But I
yeah,
can tell you
that's
that
kind of
we've
putting
had
it out
other
there.
situations where these requests have been made and,
Mhm.
and we've had to go through that process with
Right.
others. Now, has it ever been done where, I don't know, but I know that other requests similar to this, and I'll give you an example, we just did one maybe a year to 2 years ago on that property off of Sam Houston near Cesar Chavez, where we had a lift station and then all the rest of the property, and then the individual said, well, I'll buy all the way up to, you know, where the lift station is, and, you know, he had to go through the process of, you know, getting an appraisal and then purchasing it from the
It's
city.
probably, if I might suggest that, it's something that probably should be covered up front, because otherwise maybe we're just burning time and days, and, you know, we've got other things to do, you do, I do, so.
I guess at this point, I mean, I think it still requires, I think, a little more conversation. Because you need to know about this option from the fire department. Is that something that you're willing to do? Because, you know, the safety issue is important. And then now we're talking about a big brush truck having to come in and back out. So I think that there's still a little more that's left to be done. Are you willing to do an appraisal? Are you willing to purchase the land for the appraised value?
Well, once again, another thing that was discussed is there's the possibility of some key getting through the gate that I guess is universal or something. That was discussed. That hasn't been brought up, so as far as access as well, so.
And I agree. I think these things needed to be spoken up front, and it sounds like when the planning and zoning folks got together, there was some discussions finally had. So I think we need to visit with Mr. Hoffman and talk about the things that have been brought up. And I think we do need make it a point to tell the folks before they invest in coming to make, well, this is not a variance, but in coming before us so that they know what we're dealing with. And even, I don't even know if the, sounds like the folks at the planning and zoning before we even discussed the issues with the fire, because, I mean, they approved it. They approved this, you know, and that's what I was going on. So, I'd like for you, if you're still interested, to sit down with staff to talk about what some of the things that are coming up, and see if there's options to be able to, because I think you've got a valid point of trying to beautify and put something there, taking into consideration our folks that live next to it, and making that something more accessible for, if he's trying to work with the youth in his community, in our community.
And another comment that was made is taking it off the back of the city as far as maintaining whatever maintenance, you know, might be there, so.
Right,
and then,
right.
Ms. Hoffman, did you know about this proposed water improvement, I guess is the best way to propose it?
No.
Were you aware of that?
No.
I think that would have been, you set down some playground equipment, and then you're gonna have to move it all, and they're gonna dig 6, 7 feet?
Yeah.
How far are you gonna have to dig for that water line?
As far as that, usually about, in that area, we're probably about maybe 4 feet.
4 feet.
Yeah.
So you're gonna put a big 4-foot trench in there.
Yeah, and still we're gonna need some
I guess,
area.
just so that we're not wasting your time, let's really look at all things that are, that need to be considered, and then if you're still interested, you know, as I support what you're trying to do. I think there's just a lot to consider for you as a leader of your church and the city as well. So we gotta make sure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Well, let me mention one more thing. Again, we've improved the parking facilities considerably, but with the alleyway erosion, it's been a mess, and that's a problem. So grass most of that area, fix that up, it would look better. So I really would like for you all to consider it. And I'm just saying this for future reference. It probably could save yourself some time, could save other people some time if they maybe know some of the facts more up front.
Absolutely.
And that's going to happen. I mean, you know, but, you know, we all learn from everything that happens. So, and it still may be something we want to do, but I obviously want our folks to know exactly what we're getting into.
Right.
And through the discussions as well, it seemed to me that maybe some of these alleyways had been, you know, something had been done with them in the past. So, and no mention of buying or anything like that. So
We'll look into that too. I think it's got to be a systematic, uniform way of dealing with it. So I think at this point I'd like to table it, not to vote it down, but to let you have an opportunity and have staff sit with you and your representatives about what are the requirements, why we have them, and also I'd like for y'all to look at options to see if we can help them look at that. I know I've got some residents, I take it. Yeah, you want to come? Typically I don't, but if you can come forward, sure. Talk about systematic. I'm letting you do something I don't let.
Good evening. My name is Silva Ramirez, and I live 2 houses adjacent to where the church is at. I see their concern in a way where they come from, but as a community, it also puts us in hazard because all the light posts are there, the cable, the bus runs through there to pick up the children in the back.
The alley?
Yes.
The run bus
Yes.
through the alley?
Yes. There's no children in the morning in the church. And now their fence is like this and then this way. I don't see why they just can't enclose it. I mean, they have it open. They can enclose that side and leave the alleyway accessible to us.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Just a quick question. The bus, is that a PSJ bus?
Yes.
I'm assuming?
Yes, it runs through there. And I see it every morning in the house in the corner.
We need to report that. Buses should not be going through an alley.
They do go, and they pick up the children in the house that's in the corner.
Chief, can you take care of that? That shouldn't be happening.
Okay, and I mean, I know it's beautification, but if they just enclose it, I'm sure there's always someone to supervise there. And then adjacent, would that give us the option for me to run my fence all the way through since that portion of the alley is going to be closed? I mean, does that give me a right for me to close and, you know, do my fence all the way to the end? That's the way I see it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to table this? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Well, I think everybody said aye. Did everybody say aye? E, consider adopting a resolution designating a voting member, alternate member, and proxy representative from the City of San Juan to the Hidalgo County Urban Advisory Council. Ms. Ramirez?
Mayor and Commissioners, good evening. The Hidalgo County Urban County Office notified me that the city requesting to adopt a resolution in order to update the city's representatives. What they have on file was back from 2011, and I'm here to ask for a voting member, an alternate, and a proxy representative for that board.
I attended that last meeting because the notification was that I was a representative. Typically, it doesn't state that it has to be the mayor, but the ones that were present are typically the mayor. I am interested in serving on that board and representing the city, so I'd like to be appointed the representative. And I know there's a meeting going on this weekend, so we caught it in time to get it on here. It apparently never been updated since the last mayor, and so I don't know if they've had any meetings since then. The first meeting I ever went to was a month ago maybe, because we didn't have anybody designated. So,
Mayor, if I could just comment, I have been the appointee. I spoke with Diana Serna at length today. The only time we did not appoint somebody was last year, but I was on that and served and attended the meetings in the last 4 years. Last year they didn't have a meeting. Prior to that, they had 3 consecutive meetings that I attended, and it's typically it's 1 meeting per year. 3 years ago they had 2 meetings. These meetings are typically in the evening. I've never seen, in the 4 years, I've never seen one not be in the evening. And it's usually at the Urban County Conference where the yearly meeting is held. The one time where they did have a second meeting, it was hosted by the City of Hidalgo at Hidalgo City Hall. And so, and no offense, Mayor, and I just, you do serve on other boards, and I'd like to see if, since this is something that's typically once a year and on occasion twice a year in the evening, that we give one of the other commissioners an opportunity to serve on this committee or on this advisory committee. But having said that, I'd like to recommend Commissioner Ramirez, and I'll make that in the form of a motion.
are there any other recommendations? I was calling for others. I think that I think that the issue here is, you know, you talk about, and that's fine, you're going to have the vote. You talk about having others serve. You've served in so many of the boards here that you've designated yourself as the one that, yeah, well, and now it causes you
just for the record,
issue.
For the record, because you made that comment.
Get yourself to give somebody else instead of the mayor on this one. So, but that's
I'd like to comment
typical.
because you made the comment.
Typical.
I've never designated myself. It's always been through commission action.
Right.
Number one. Number two, we had this conversation last year when we were appointing to boards, and one of the main reasons was because typically on some of these other boards that I do serve on, and there's only 2 others, the Amigos del Valle and the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council, 2 others only, and those meetings are held during the day, and some of our other commissioners were not able to do that, so I take offense to the fact that you're characterizing it completely different, but I understand why you do that. It's your daily goal to attack me on that. But I do want to clarify and make sure to put the facts out there.
This last
and the
meeting
facts
that-
are that, I'm still talking, ma'am, and the
We'll
facts
say
are
something.
that, that I've never appointed myself. This commission has appointed me, and there was a reason for that. So just want to clarify your comments.
And the last meeting was held at noon. So just to let you know, they're not always held in the evening. But there was a motion and a second to appoint Commissioner Ramirez. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye. Motion passes.
And the alternate?
the alternate. Is there a motion for an alternate?
I'll make a motion for Commissioner Mario Garza.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
I vote against.
Would there be a proxy or?
Typically, on the proxies, they've been staff.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone, unless Mayor, if you want the proxy, I'll be happy to nominate you for the proxy.
I'm sure you would. You can put staff. I'll go ahead and nominate,
Goodwood.
I'll go ahead and nominate Mr. Ponce for that. Are there any other nominations? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Ramirez. F, consider resolution authorizing